Chapter 340. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all here. In the middle of June, there was a rainstorm in the capital that lasted for 5 days. Many fields and houses were flooded. The Ministry of Works was busy dredging the sewers in the capital. Even Empress Dowager Zhuang's residence was temporarily suspended. Marquis Gu was called back to take on the task at hand. The Ministry of Revenue was busy helping the people resume farming. Some of the Hanlin officials who knew agriculture were also transferred to the countryside. Xiao Lulang was among the conscripted. The day before departure, he went to Rinshou Palace to say goodbye to Empress Dowager Zhuang. In the study, Empress Dowager Zhuang looked at the accounts and snorted. "It's not that far away. It's only a day's drive. Why do you have to say goodbye?" As soon as she finished speaking, Eunuch Qin came in with a bag. "Xiao Xiuzhu, the things for you have been put away. They were all personally selected by the Empress Dowager. This servant was just about to send them to Bishui Alley when you came by yourself." Xiao Lulang looked at the 2 bags full of things, and then looked at his grandaunt. "Oh, what happened to not saying goodbye?" Empress Dowager Zhuang glared at Eunuch Qin. Eunuch Qin touched his nose resentfully. "Oh, this servant remembered that there are still some accounts that I haven't finished reading. This servant will go first." After saying that, he ran away like a wisp of smoke. "When do you leave?" Empress Dowager Zhuang asked. "Tomorrow morning," Xiao Lulang said. Empress Dowager Zhuang asked, "Who else is there besides you?" Xiao Lulang said, "Wang Xiuzhu Li Xiuzhu, Yang Shishir." Empress Dowager Zhuang said lightly, "Come in." Eunuch Qin stepped in. "Empress Dowager, what are your orders?" Empress Dowager Zhuang said, "Ijia has a few scriptures to copy. Go to Hanlin Academy and let Yang Shishir copy these scriptures." "No need, grandaunt," Xiao Lulang said. "How can you use a sledgehammer to kill a chicken? I can handle it." Empress Dowager Zhuang thought that she really couldn't overprotect him. This kind of small fish and shrimps for this boy to practice. "Is dinner ready?" Empress Dowager Zhuang asked Eunuch Qin. Eunuch Qin hurriedly smiled and said, "I'm just waiting for Empress Dowager to summon the meal." Xiao Lulang accompanied Empress Dowager Zhuang to have dinner at Rinshou Palace, and then planned to leave. Empress Dowager Zhuang said indifferently, "I've been sitting here all day. I'm going out for a walk." Eunuch Qin thought to himself, "Just say that you want to give it to Lord Xiao." Xiao Liulang's lips curled slightly. "All right." The 2 of them left Rinshou Palace. The torrential rain not only flooded a small part of the capital, it also flooded quite a bit of the imperial palace. Fortunately, Rinshou Palace was the palace with the most real power. All the water had been dredged out, and the roads had been filled up. All the way to the main entrance of the imperial palace was unobstructed. The Pure Flowers Palace was also unobstructed. The setting sun was beautiful today, and the weather was cool and refreshing. Grand Concubine Jing sat on a palanquin with an imperial canopy. She wore a nun's robes and a nun's hat, which didn't fit in with the luxurious palanquin. Grand Concubine Jing had been recuperating in Pure Flowers Palace ever since she was injured. After several days of torrential rain, the imperial physician said that she couldn't always stay in her chambers and should go out for some fresh air. Thus, the emperor had people carry her out in a palanquin. Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't sit in her own carriage because she wanted to accompany Xiao Lulang. Now that the 2 parties met unexpectedly, it was Grand Concubine Jing who was high and mighty. Eunuch Qin was about to scold her for not getting off the palanquin when she saw the Empress Dowager. However, Xiao Lulang was 1 step ahead of him. He performed the greeting of a monk and said, "Shirtai Jing'an." The expressions of the servants beside Grand Concubine Jing changed. "What nun Jing'an?" This was Grand Concubine Jing. Even His Majesty addressed her as mother. Grand Concubine Jing's expression didn't change. Xiao Lulang introduced, "Grand Concubine Jing has been away from the palace for too long, and has become a monk. I'm sure you've forgotten your past. This is the Empress Dowager." At this point, no one could refuse to bow to Empress Dowager Zhuang. "Get off the palanquin." Grand Concubine Jing raised her hand and looked at Empress Dowager Zhuang. Empress Dowager Zhuang also looked at her. Both of their gazes were incomparably calm. No one could guess what they were thinking. Granny Kai reached out and helped Grand Concubine Jing up. Grand Concubine Jing's body was still in pain, but the injury wasn't in any place. It was awkward and slow to heal. Grand Concubine Jing held Granny Kai's hand and slowly walked to Empress Dowager Zhuang. She made a Buddhist bow. This humble nun. Without waiting for her to finish, Empress Dowager Zhuang left without looking back. Grand Concubine Jing's body froze in the middle of her bow. Everyone in the palace saw her awkward and embarrassed state. Empress Dowager Zhuang's aura was undoubtedly powerful and shocking. She didn't need to look down on anyone on purpose. She naturally had the aura of being number one in the world. Grand Imperial Concubine. A young palace maid came forward to support her. Grand Concubine Jing's eyelashes trembled. "I'm fine." Empress Dowager Zhuang accompanied Xiao Lulang all the way to the Imperial Garden. Xiao Lulang stopped and said to her, "Great-aunt, please go back. It's getting late." "Amen." Empress Dowager Zhuang faintly responded. She looked into his eyes and warned, "Be careful." "I understand." Xiao Lulang nodded. He glanced in the direction of Pure Flower's palace and said, "I'll leave Jiao Jiao in your care, Great-aunt." Empress Dowager Zhuang rolled her eyes. "I will naturally take care of my Jiao Jiao. Do I need you to remind me?" Xiao Lulang chuckled. "Then I'll take my leave first." "Amen." Empress Dowager Zhuang watched Xiao Lulang disappear at the end of the path before turning around to return to Renshou Palace. She noticed that Eunuch Qin was lost in thought. She glared at him and said, "What are you spacing out for? Let's go." Eunuch Qin sighed ruefully. When Xiao Xiuzhuang smiles, he looks very good. Empress Dowager Zhuang thought, of course he looks good. How could the young marquis who was crowned at the age of 13 not have some good looks? It's just that this child doesn't like to smile. This didn't seem right either. He used to love to smile. When he was young, the entire Imperial Garden was filled with his chuckles. It was that fire at the Imperial College that burned away his laughter. Was that fire really an accident? If Xiao Heng survived, then who was the charred corpse that died in the fire? When Xiao Lulang woke up the next day, Gu Jiao had already packed his luggage. This wasn't the first time he was going on a long journey. In the past, he was rushing to take the imperial exams. Now he was going on a business trip. The mosquito repellent incense is in this bundle. The mosquito repellent, diarrhea medicine, and motion sickness medicine are in this sachet. There are also some fruits and dry rations to eat on the road. Gu Jiao knew that he didn't have much money on him. If he didn't earn money to pay the rent, then it would be used for her household expenses. Gu Jiao put 100 taels of silver in the innermost part of the bundle, as well as a bag of silver and copper coins. Xiao Lulang took the bundle. "I'll be back in half a month at the earliest. At the latest, I won't be back later than next month. Take care." Gu Jiao sent him to the carriage. Lu Quan first sent him to the Hanlin Academy. All the Hanlin officials took the carriage to the countryside. Little Jing Kong went to school, so he didn't make it in time to see him off. After Xiao Lulang left, Gu Jiao went to the medical center and stayed there for the whole morning. Then she changed into men's clothes and put on a mask before going to the Thai and martial arts club. She had been very busy these days and hadn't come for a long time. She had to recover her strength as soon as possible. She didn't want that kamikaze soldier to run away the next time she saw him. She wanted to put him in a sack. Gu Jiao didn't meet any difficult opponents today. After fighting a few rounds, she came out uninterested. She rubbed her wrist and walked back. Because some of the streets in the city were still flooded, she didn't take the same route as before. Instead, she took a big detour. On the way back, she met the beggar who had set up the chessboard last time. The beggar still covered his face with a book, as if he was asleep. In front of him was a different chessboard from last time. Gu Jiao looked at it curiously. This time, the chessboard was obviously more difficult. She didn't solve it as quickly as last time. She began to deduce in her mind. There were more than 10 moves in this chessboard, and each move would produce dozens of chessboards. Ordinary people couldn't deduce with such a huge amount of data in their minds. After about half an hour, Gu Jiao opened her eyes. She picked up a chess piece and put it on the chessboard. Just as she was about to leave, a skinny old hand suddenly grabbed her wrist. It was the old beggar. She was so focused on deducing the chessboard that she didn't notice that he had woken up. The old beggar grabbed her wrist and said, "Hey, you want to leave after playing my game? Don't you see what's written on this sign?" It was a broken wooden sign that Gu Jiao had seen before. It said 10 taels per game. Oh. Gu Jiao stretched out her hand. The old beggar looked at his empty hand and was surprised. "What? Didn't you want to give me money?" Gu Jiao pointed at the wooden sign. 10 taels. The old beggar gasped. "You're the one who gave me 10 taels." No, listening to the voice. This little girl was a girl? Oh, so he wasn't asking for help to solve the chessboard. Gu Jiao misunderstood. She thought about it and said strangely, "But this kind of broken chessboard is worth 10 taels?" The old beggar almost choked to death. He pointed at the chessboard on the ground. What did you say? Solve the chessboard? You call this a broken chessboard?" Gu Jiao said innocently. 10 taels of silver is the living expenses of a family of 10 in the countryside for 2 years. You're charging so much, so you should at least play something difficult, right? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that you can't find on the internet. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896422826/111491002. HTML Genius remembered this site's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 341. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all available here. The old beggar almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Were all kids nowadays so arrogant? The old beggar rolled up his sleeves. "If you have the ability, play a game with me. I'll let you have 9 stones. If you can beat me. Forget it, you don't have to beat me. If you tie with me, you win. I'll give you 10 taels of silver." Okay. Gu Jiao agreed without hesitation. The old beggar looked at Gu Jiao suspiciously. "You agreed so quickly? Aren't you afraid that I'll renege?" Regardless of whether she was confident or not, this child dared to say such arrogant words because she was conceited and proud. But he was an old beggar. Wasn't she afraid that he would renege? "I'm not afraid." Gu Jiao shook her head and said. The old beggar looked at her deeply and nodded secretly. Although this child was a little arrogant, her heart was pure, and she was willing to believe others. "Gu Jiao, you think too much. If you dare to renege, I'll beat you." The old beggar cleaned up the stone chess pieces on the chessboard and put them into 2 broken bowls according to their color. He put a bowl of black stones with ink on it in Gu Jiao's hand. "You play black." She played black first. He said that he would let her have 9 stones. Gu Jiao didn't refuse. He wanted to let her have the stones. She didn't force him. That's right. The old beggar looked at Gu Jiao's first chess piece. It was quite normal, with 3 or 4 small pieces. If he chose 3 or 3, he would be able to win immediately. However, he had promised to give her 9 pieces. Next, he would see how she would play. Gu Jiao's first 9 stones were all ordinary. The old beggar thought that she had wasted the 9 stones he gave her. Did she know how to play chess? Was she just a blind cat bumping into a dead mouse when she broke his game? "Okay, it's your turn," Gu Jiao said to the old beggar. The old beggar took a white chess piece, which was actually a small stone, and put it on the chessboard. An old man and a young man were squatting by the roadside playing chess. One of them had an open book on his head, while the other was wearing a coquettish mask. The moves on the chessboard were messy and strange. From time to time, people would pass by and stop for a moment out of curiosity, but they couldn't understand what they were doing. "Is this how you play chess?" A young scholar asked. He knew how to play chess, but he had never seen such a way of playing chess. It was simply too preposterous. They didn't attack where they should attack, and didn't defend where they should defend. He's just an old beggar and a lunatic. Do you really expect him to know how to play chess? That brat's brain must not be damaged to actually play with him. I think these two people are either crazy or idiots. What the hell are they playing? Let's go. What's so interesting about two idiots playing chess? It was better to go to the Qinghuan Chess Club. It was said that there were several masters there, and there would be 3 games of masters today. Have you heard of Maoshan Hermit? Why haven't I heard of Maoshan Hermit? He's a master of our Zhao country. Is he also in the Qinghuan Chess Club? Yes. Then let's go and have a look. The onlookers all dispersed when they heard the name of Maoshan Hermit. There was only a 3-year-old boy who was eating candied haws. He didn't know how to play chess, and he was just looking for a place to eat candied haws. The old beggar and Gu Jiao were not people who cared about the opinions of others. Whether there were people watching, cheering, or ridiculing, it didn't affect them. The two of them concentrated on playing chess. If Maoshan Hermit came here, he would be able to see what kind of murderous intent and stormy waves were hidden in the seemingly messy chess game. The old beggar didn't pay much attention at first, but after a few steps he noticed that something was wrong. What a tricky move. Her 9 sons seemed to be scattered in the east and 1 in the west, without any order, but in reality, it was a huge net that covered the sky, tightly blocking every single one of his escape routes. He played the second half of the game seriously, and finally tied with Gu Jiao. The old beggar laughed in surprise. Little girl, you're the first one who tied with me at such a young age. Where did you learn from? No teacher. In her previous life, she watched people play chess in the park, and then she learned it by herself. Occasionally, she would play chess with her godfather. Her godfather was a very busy man, but as a reward for every task she completed, he would spare some time to play with her. The old beggar looked at Gu Jiao seriously to make sure that she wasn't lying. Then he was really surprised. The tie today was mainly because he was careless and underestimated the enemy. He thought that the little girl didn't know how to play chess, so he played carelessly. If he played seriously from the beginning, he could still beat the little girl even if he lost 9 pieces. But the little girl didn't specially find someone to learn chess. In other words, she learned it by herself. Her talent was very scary. The old beggar said again, "Have you played chess with a master?" Gu Jiao thought for a moment. Have you played chess? Her godfather should be considered a master. Anyway, she didn't win against him. The old beggar was secretly relieved. That was more like it. Otherwise, it would be too scary if only she and he could play at such a high level. However, even with the experience of playing chess with a master, it wasn't easy to figure it out. She was a talented child. The old beggar looked at Gu Jiao with admiration. Just as he was about to ask her name and where she lived, Gu Jiao spoke first. You said it before. If it's a tie, it's your loss. Silver. The old beggar's mouth twitched. Can you not ruin the atmosphere at such a critical moment? The old beggar took out a few pieces of silver from his wrinkled money bag with a dark face. It added up to about 10 taels, which was all he had. He handed it to Gu Jiao. For you, for you, for you. Gu Jiao counted and weighed it. She picked out the smallest one and gave it back to him. I said that I only need 10 taels. She was honest. Gu Jiao got up and left after taking the silver. The old beggar stopped her. Hey, wait. You haven't told me your name yet. Are you still coming tomorrow? Gu Jiao walked away. 10 taels for a game. Gu Jiao came back again. The old beggar was speechless. Gu Jiao went back to the clinic to change her clothes. Little Jing Kong ran into her small courtyard. Jiao Jiao. Jiao Jiao. He ran too fast and fell down again. Fortunately, the wrestling monk's reputation was not in vain. He held his head and rolled half of the courtyard to the stairs like a small winter melon. Then he got up as if nothing had happened, and went up the stairs valiantly. He was not delicate at all. Jiao Jiao. He entered Gu Jiao's room with a letter in his hand. Gu Jiao just put away the mask and turned to look at him. You're out of school so early today? Who sent you here? Brother Yan. Little Jing Kong said. He didn't send him for free. He paid for the trip. That's right. In order to expand his business of paying off his debts, Guyan developed a program to send the little guy to the clinic after school. It cost 20 copper coins per trip. Where is he? Gu Jiao held the little guy's hand and led him to the wash basin. She fetched some water for him to wipe his sweat. Little Jing Kong obediently handed over his little head and let Jiao Jiao wipe it for him. He met his classmate outside the clinic and is talking to him. Did you fall again? Gu Jiao finished wiping his little head and found a lot of grass on his body. Yes. Little Jing Kong suddenly felt wronged. He pulled up his pants and said with tears in his eyes, "It hurts." Gu Jiao looked at his non-existent wound and washed his face and hands. "Okay, I'll rub it for you." Little Jing Kong squinted his eyes in enjoyment. After rubbing his calf, Gu Jiao looked at the letter in his hand. "What's that in your hand?" "A letter." Little Jing Kong said. "I received a letter from Brother Ming. Ming, the son of Prince Yu and his wife, was the little envoy of the Liang Kingdom. Before leaving, the two little guys agreed to exchange letters. She didn't expect Ming's letter to come so soon. I want to read it with Jiao Jiao," Little Jing Kong said seriously. Gu Jiao smiled and said, "Okay." Little Jing Kong climbed onto Gu Jiao's lap and found a comfortable position to sit down. He leaned his little head on Gu Jiao's arm and handed the letter to her. "Jiao Jiao, read it." Gu Jiao opened the letter. To Jing Kong. "Jing Kong, I see that Xin is well. I am Brother Ming. Do you remember me? I had a fruitful trip to the Zhao Kingdom. I was so happy that I didn't think of home. After returning, you missed you and Brother Yu very much. Are you both well?" Little Jing Kong's letter wasn't written entirely in vernacular, but Gu Jiao understood the general meaning. Ming and Prince Yu had returned to the Liang Kingdom 3 days ago. After that, Ming began to fulfill his promise to Little Jing Kong. Ming used Prince Yu's hunting eagle to send the letter to the Zhao Kingdom's royal courier station. This was also why Little Jing Kong could receive Ming's letter so quickly. The Liang Kingdom was very hot. Ming said in the letter that he was about to become a steamed bun because he was going to be 10 years old and was no longer a child. It was time for him to learn the etiquette of a prince, so he would be very busy. In the process of reporting to the king of the Liang Kingdom, a major event happened. The king of the Liang Kingdom was dissatisfied with Prince Yu's decision to exchange the glaze technology to the Zhao Kingdom. He almost punished Prince Yu. From this, Gu Jiao could see how much Prince Yu had compromised for Ming. However, the letter also said that the king of the Liang Kingdom didn't punish Prince Yu because Ming offered the long-lost original music score of Master Yu Yin, Reflected Shadow. Master Yu Yin was the best musician in the 6 kingdoms. He not only made the best imitation of the Fuxi zither, but also created the peerless divine songs Graceful Grace and Reflected Shadow that were suitable for both the Fuxi zither and the jade flute. Graceful Grace was the first half of the song, and the music score was in the Liang Kingdom's palace. However, the music score of Reflected Shadow was lost. Master Yu Yin himself disappeared from the Liang Kingdom 5 years ago. The king of the Liang Kingdom was very fond of music and was proficient in it. He recognized at a glance that it was Master Yu Yin's original music score. He was so excited that he couldn't speak for a long time. Because of the music score of Reflected Shadow, the king of the Liang Kingdom pardoned Prince Yu's mistake. In the letter, Ming said that he didn't expect Little Jing Kong to give him such a precious thing. Well, actually Ming chose it randomly. Little Jing Kong gave Ming a farewell gift made of gold. Ming felt that it was too expensive and couldn't accept it. Thus, he chose a piece of scrap paper that he didn't think was expensive at all. He didn't know if this counted as a child who wasn't greedy. Sometimes he even had more candy to eat. In the letter, Ming expressed his gratitude and told Little Jing Kong that he also prepared a gift for him and was on the way. In addition, Ming asked Little Jing Kong how he got the music score. Did Little Jing Kong know Master Yu Yin? Little Jing Kong spread his hands. I don't know him. Those are things that Master didn't want. The corner of Gu Jiao's mouth twitched. Things that he didn't want? Was a white-bearded old monk so rich? In a certain inn in a certain city in a certain country, A young and handsome monk with a tear mole under his right eye was drinking wine and eating meat. He sneezed mercilessly. Achoo! The moonlight was like a hook. In the small study of the Eastern Palace, the crown princess was sitting on a cushion and concentrating on playing chess. She was playing chess by herself. The little palace maid beside her was gently fanning her. Yes, I'm done. She placed the last chess piece and heaved a sigh of relief. She ordered, "You don't have to fan me anymore." The weather wasn't so hot after the rainstorm. Yes. The little palace maid closed her fan. The maid came forward and asked, "Crown Princess, do you still want to play? Why don't you rest for a while and walk around? You've been playing for a long time." Okay. The Crown Princess also felt that her body was a little stiff and sore. She reached out her hand. The maid hurried forward to help her up. She said to the little palace maid beside her, "Go get some snacks and make a pot of flower tea." Yes. The little palace maid accepted the order and left. The Crown Princess strolled to the bed. A cool night breeze blew over, bringing along the fragrance of the courtyard. It made one feel relaxed and happy. The Crown Princess stood in front of the bed and stared blankly at the flowers in the garden that had already closed. She didn't take the tea and snacks that the little palace maid offered. The little palace maid looked at the maid awkwardly. The maid took the tray from her and said in a low voice, "I'll do it. You can leave." Yes. The little palace maid left. The maid put the tray on the table beside her and poured a cup of flower tea for the Crown Princess. "Crown Princess, have some tea." The Crown Princess sighed. She took the teacup and took a sip. The maid asked, "Crown Princess, do you have something on your mind?" The Crown Princess looked at the tea in the cup. "I wonder if they received His Majesty's letters to the 5 nations?" The maid said, "Crown Princess, are you talking about His Majesty telling you to solve the Koan situation? The Chun nation is the closest to us, so they should have received it. Next are the Jin nation and the Liang nation." "What about the Yen nation?" the Crown Princess asked. The maid thought for a moment. "The Yen nation isn't the farthest. It's just that there are too many checkpoints. Many places don't allow us to pass through." The Yen nation was the hegemon of the 6 nations and firmly held the position of being the leader. It would not allow anyone to pass through wherever it said. The maid continued, "However, it should be soon." The Crown Princess's eyes flickered. "I wonder if I can gain old Mr. Meng's favor?" The maid said with a smile, "Definitely. The Crown Princess is the first person to solve the Koan situation in the 6 nations. How can old Mr. Meng not be amazed by your talent?" The Crown Princess muttered, "If only I can become old Mr. Meng's disciple." This way, she would have the backing and background of the Yen nation. Only when a person was deeply hurt would they remember it unforgettable. Even now, when she recalled the experience of going to the Liang nation, she felt as if there was a needle in her heart. She was clearly the most knowledgeable and talented, but she did not have the opportunity to speak. No one paid attention to her, and no one cared about her. She, who shone like a bright pearl in the Zhao nation, was just a grain of rice that fell into the ocean in the Liang nation. They did not care about her extraordinary strength or her gorgeous appearance. They praised those unattractive ladies, saying that they were as beautiful as fairies and had dignified manners. However, they could not even walk as well as her. In order to shine in the Liang nation, she walked 10,000 steps in a day. Her legs were numb from training, and she was the most elegant one when bowing. But who cared? She watched those so-called daughters of the upper nations answer the simplest questions and recite the most meaningless poems. She just sat alone in the corner. Finally, no one could answer. She thought that her chance had come. Unexpectedly, she heard the Liang nation's princess say, "Since that's the case, today will end here. Congratulations to Miss Morong, Miss Lin, and Miss Zhuge for becoming the top 3 in this banquet. I will reward you handsomely." Top 3 places. What a joke. With this kind of standard, they could become the top 3. She, who had real strength, sat on the bench for an entire night. Miss Zhuge was from the Zhao nation. The Zhao nation was also a lower nation. However, because she had a great scholar as a teacher, she was also praised by the Liang nation's princess. Old Master Meng was also from the lower nation. After he became the chess saint of the Six Nations, he was personally invited to the capital by the Yen Nation's king. He was given the title of Yen Nation's senior doctor and a mansion. If she could become old Master Meng's disciple, then she would no longer be looked down upon. She would have the opportunity to compete fairly with others. She would be able to use her true ability to shake the Six Nations. However, after he made a 10-tail bet with Gu Jiao, the old beggar fell into a deep melancholy. There was no other reason. He was a beggar. Where would he get the money? He had saved up 10 taels with great difficulty. But if he did not have it, then the little girl would not play chess with him. The old beggar was at his wits' end. When he passed by a chess club, he heard the people inside sighing. I didn't expect Maoshan layperson to lose. That new player is so good. If I had known, I would have bet on him. The old beggar had an idea and pulled him back. Little brother, do you want to earn back the money? Digression, Crown Princess. God is giving me food to eat. Asterisk, asterisk carrot asterisk, asterisk jiao jiao. God is chasing after me to feed me food. Oh asterisk, asterisk. Oh, the latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964226/111490790. HTML Genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 342. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated more quickly. Millions of novels will be read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online. At night, little Jing Kong replied to Brother Ming, with an emotional letter. Then he hung the letter around little Jing Kong's neck and carried little Jing Kong to the east room. Jiao Jiao, I have an eagle too. Using little Jing Kong to send a letter to Brother Ming. Gu Jiao was amused. She patted his little head and said, Little Jing Kong has never been to Liang State, so he doesn't know the way. Besides, even if he knew the way, wouldn't the letter fly away if he hung it around his neck? Why was this kid so funny? Little Jing Kong was no longer a little eagle chick. He was a real gerfalcon. He didn't understand what his little master wanted him to do, so he opened his eyes wide in confusion. Oh, that's good. Little Jing Kong was a little disappointed. If he used an eagle, it could fly very fast. Brother Ming, would receive his letter in 2 days. Can I use the 800-mile express? He really hoped that Brother Ming, would receive his letter soon. Gu Jiao looked at him and said, The public's letter can't be used for the 800-mile express. Little Jing Kong tilted his head. But I used it last time. I sent the letter to Master together with brother-in-law. Brother-in-law sent it to me with an express delivery of 800 miles. This little guy was probably fooled by Xiao Lulang. Well, since he was her husband, she wouldn't expose him. Gu Jiao said, Because Brother Ming isn't in Zhao State, the 800-mile express can't reach Liang State. Little Jing Kong lowered his little head. I see. Gu Jiao looked at the little fellow's depressed look and couldn't bear it. She thought for a moment and said, How about this? Let's go to the palace tomorrow to see my grandaunt and ask her if she has sent any official letters to the Liang Kingdom recently. Official letters are much faster than ordinary letters. If there are, we can bring your letter. Okay. Little Jing Kong was happy again. The next day, after little Jing Kong finished school at the Imperial College, Gu Jiao took him to the Imperial Palace. Gu Shaoshan and Gu Yan had to learn their skills, so they didn't bring them along. Little Jing Kong's Ming gave him a letter with a red candle stamp on it. She begged Brother Shaoshan to make one for him. Gu Shaoshan carved his own seal, and then dripped the burning red candle on the seal of the letter. While it was still hot, he stamped the seal on it, and it was done. Not only that, But Gu Xiaoshan also made him a beautiful and practical wooden box to hold the letter. Little Jingkong took the wooden box and the gerfalcon little 9. His little Jiao had not entered the palace before, so he decided to bring little Jiao to see the world. Little Jingkong didn't understand why his friend was so sad. He thought for a moment and said seriously, "I heard that you were sick. Are you crying because you haven't recovered? Jiao Jiao is a very good doctor. She's in the palace. I can take you there and ask her to take a look at you." "I'm not crying because of this." Qin Chuyu roared in his heart. "Brother Chuyu?" Little Jingkong tilted his head and looked at him. There was a hint of worry in his eyes. The cute little guy was as innocent as a cub. Qin Chuyu immediately lost his resistance. He lowered his voice and said in a choked voice, No. I can't go to Rinshou Palace. I can't see you either. We are destined to be brothers with a bitter life. In this life, we can only live in each other's memories." Little Jingkong patted him on the shoulder. "Okay, don't worry. Jiao Jiao's medical skills are really good. She can definitely cure you." As he spoke, he held Qin Chuyu's chubby hand. Qin Chuyu wanted to shake his hand off, but for some reason, he felt dizzy and was pulled to Rinshou Palace. Qin Chuyu had always been deeply afraid of Rinshou Palace. He had never taken the initiative to come here. Except for the necessary greetings during festivals, he would always come here with his father and mother. When he reached the gate of Rinshou Palace, he suddenly realized something and turned around to run away. Coincidentally, Gu Jiaojiao was adjusting the swing in the courtyard in the front hall. She saw the two little guys and greeted them. "Chuyu, you're here. Come in and play with Jingkong." "I don't." Before he could finish his words, he saw the swing that was taller than a tree. His attention was immediately attracted. It was a child's nature to have fun. Moreover, Gu Jiaojiao was here. It gave him the illusion that he was still in the small courtyard of the medical center. In fact, the courtyard here had been remodeled. It was similar to the small courtyard in Clearwater Alley and the small courtyard in the medical center. He walked in a daze. Not only was there a huge swing in the courtyard, but there was also a novel and unique wooden horse and a slide that reached into the rockery. They were all designed by Gu Jiaojiao. Qin Chuyu was stunned. "Jiaojiao, Chuyu is sick. Can you take a look at him?" Little Jingkong came to Gu Jiaojiao and asked cutely. "Okay." Gu Jiaojiao waved at Qin Chuyu. "Come here." Qin Chuyu walked over in a daze. Gu Jiaojiao touched his forehead, and then checked his pulse. "There's no problem. You're fine." Little Jingkong looked at Qin Chuyu and said happily, "Did you hear that? Jiaojiao said you're fine. You can rest assured. Don't cry anymore. Go and play." Gu Jiaojiao smiled. It was a child's nature to love to play. No matter how much Qin Chuyu was afraid of Empress Dowager Zhuang in his mind, at this moment, he was just a happy little fat boy accompanied by Gu Jiaojiao and little Jingkong. The two of them played in the yard until they were covered in sweat. At first, Qin Chuyu was a little restrained. But after playing for a while, he became more excited than little Jingkong. His laughter and screams filled the yard. Even the trumpet girl couldn't beat him in shouting. Empress Dowager Zhuang, who was reading the memorials in the study, became angry. "Little fatty, you're so noisy." Qin Chuyu was having so much fun in Rinshou Palace that he forgot about his home and had dinner there. He was so engrossed in playing that when Gu Jiaojiao asked him and little Jingkong to come in for dinner, he agreed without hesitation. But when he saw Empress Dowager Zhuang sitting at the table with a dignified expression, he was so scared that his legs went soft, and he almost fell on the ground. Yes, although he became bolder after going to the Imperial College, he was still a little coward in front of Empress Dowager Zhuang, who was a big evil god. Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't look at little fatty. She sat in her chair calmly. Gu Jiaojiao and little Jingkong were used to her behavior, so they didn't find it scary. But Qin Chuyu was different. His legs trembled. It was even scarier than being kidnapped by human traffickers. Gu Jiaojiao took Qin Chuyu and little Jingkong to wash their hands. Then, she took the two little guys to the table and sat down. Little Jingkong still had his own little chair. Qin Chuyu was 8 years old and could reach the table. He sat between Empress Dowager Zhuang and little Jingkong, and didn't even dare to move his chopsticks. Every time people from Qingshui Alley came, the small kitchen would cook according to their tastes. When little Jing Kong was there, the dishes would be cute and childish. Looking at the white and tender buns in front of him, Qin Shiyu's saliva flowed down his mouth. The buns were stuffed with red bean paste. The red bean paste was very crushed and had a dense texture. It seemed that it would melt in the mouth. There was a little bit of cheese in it. It didn't taste like milk, but it smelled like milk. Gu Jiaojiao taught the chef from Renshou Palace to make it. Other palaces couldn't eat it. Qin Shiyu only took one bite and fell in love with it. The buns were just appetizers. There were little koi fish made with oranges, little swallows made with quail eggs, milk soup made with strange pumpkins, and Peppa Pig, which Gu Jiaojiao conquered all the young people in her previous life. Crispy meat patties with plum sauce. Wow! Qin Shiyu was shocked. He loved it. He had never eaten anything so cute. Sob. It was so delicious. He was going to cry. Qin Shiyu didn't remember that the Empress Dowager was sitting next to him. He was too busy. Qin Shiyu couldn't stop eating. It had to be said that this little fatty was a little noisy, but the way he ate was very appetizing. Empress Dowager Zhuang glanced at him and didn't say anything. The two kids were full. Qin Shiyu could have 2 more bites, but Gu Jiao was worried that he would eat too much, and said that she would cook for him next time. Can I come again next time? He blinked and asked. Of course, he was asking Empress Dowager Zhuang. Little Jing Kong and Gu Jiao couldn't answer for her. They were most afraid of silence. The palace servants all lowered their heads, and did not even dare to breathe loudly. The Empress Dowager had a clear boundary with Pure Flower's palace. Would she allow the 7th prince to visit her again and again? The last time the people from Pure Flower's palace came here, they accidentally got into trouble. Everyone looked calm on the surface, but they were all listening carefully. Empress Dowager Zhuang replied indifferently. Little Jing Kong patted his friend's shoulder. That's great. Great Aunt agreed. You can come and play with me often in the future. Qin Shiyu was so excited that he waved his arm and knocked over a bowl of soup on the table. Empress Dowager Zhuang was in trouble. The soup splashed all over her body and dripped down. The palace servants' expressions changed. Eunuch Qin quickly stepped forward. Empress Dowager. After eating for so long, the soup had already turned cold. It was just that being splashed all over made her feel very dirty and uncomfortable. Eunuch Qin quickly took out a handkerchief to wipe Empress Dowager Zhuang, but he found that it was impossible to finish. This servant will help you change your clothes. Qin Shiyu was so scared that his face turned pale. Empress, Imperial Grandmother. He heard that Imperial Grandmother ate people. Not only did she eat people, but she also killed people. Enough, don't make a fuss. Empress Dowager Zhuang pushed Eunuch Qin's hand away. She didn't let the palace servants help her, and calmly stood up. Jia is going to change my clothes. Qin Shiyu was dumbfounded. That's it? Imperial Grandmother didn't get angry? She didn't punish him? As the night deepened, Qin Shiyu finally came out of Renshou Palace with his personal eunuch. Eunuch Su, who had been waiting nearby for a while, exclaimed in surprise. He walked forward and held Qin Shiyu's small shoulder. My little ancestor, are you all right? Why did you go to Renshou Palace? Eunuch Su was Empress Zhao's trusted eunuch. Qin Shiyu didn't go to Renshou Palace secretly. Empress Zhao naturally got the news. However, she got it a little late. Empress Zhao thought he went to the East Palace. Eunuch Su grabbed Qin Shiyu's wrist. The Empress is so worried about you. Come with me to tell the Empress that you are safe. Qin Shiyu was pulled forward by him. He asked confusedly, Mother, why are you worried about me? Eunuch Su sighed. Why else? 7th Prince, you can go to any palace. Why do you have to go to Renshou Palace? Don't you know that you can't go to Renshou Palace? It was no wonder that Empress Zhao had warned Qin Shiyu to stay away from Renshou Palace. It was because Empress Zhao didn't keep an eye on little Xiaoheng more than 10 years ago, and she accidentally went to the vicinity of Renshou Palace. As a result, he was poisoned and almost lost his life. Eunuch Su stared at the eunuch behind Qin Shiyu and said, You didn't stop your master from going to Renshou Palace. I'll punish you later. Qin Shiyu frowned. Don't punish Detsi. I'm the one who wants to go. How dare he stop me? Eunuch Su said, but he should at least send a message to the Empress. Qin Chiyu said seriously, I won't let him do that. If he did, you would take me away and wouldn't let me play at Imperial Grandmother's place. Imperial Grandmother isn't as scary as you make her out to be. What's scary about her? The Emperor's smiling voice came from nearby. The Emperor would be in a good mood every time he saw this little fatty. Your Majesty. Eunuch Su turned and bowed to the Emperor on the sedan chair. He then bowed to Grand Concubine Jing on the other sedan chair behind the Emperor. Grand Concubine. Detsi bowed as well. Qin Chiyu called, Father. The Emperor waved his hand. Get down. Eunuch Wei waved his horsetail whisk and said. The two palanquins slowly descended. Qin Chiyu threw himself at his father. The Emperor was almost knocked over by the little fatty. He smiled and turned his head to indicate to him, Have you paid your respects to Grandmother Jing? Oh. Qin Chiyu left the Emperor's arms and walked to the sedan chair. He bowed to the sedan chair behind it. Greetings, Grandmother Jing. Good boy. Grand Concubine Jing smiled gently and looked at his rosy cheeks with doting eyes. Where did you go today? You seem to be very happy. Qin Chiyu said straightforwardly. I went to Rinshou Palace. I saw Imperial Grandmother. Grand Concubine Jing was stunned. The Emperor's face darkened. What did you say? Where did you go? Qin Chiyu shrunk his neck. Rinshou Palace. His father's eyes suddenly became very scary. Who told you to go to Rinshou Palace? The Emperor asked coldly. I went there myself. Qin Chiyu took 2 steps back. Come to Grandmother Jing. Grand Concubine Jing reached out her hand to Qin Chiyu. Qin Chiyu was scared half to death by his father. He jumped into Grand Concubine Jing's arms as if he had seen his savior. Grand Concubine Jing hugged him gently and said to the Emperor, Your Majesty, don't scare him. He didn't do it on purpose. Qin Chiyu murmured in Grand Concubine Jing's arms. The Emperor frowned. What did you say? Qin Chiyu was finally emboldened in front of his father, perhaps because he had someone to back him up. He mustered up his courage and said, I said that Imperial Grandmother isn't bad at all. Why won't Father let me see her? The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that you can't find online. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964226/111490746. HTML Genius memorized the website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 343. The latest chapter isn't finished yet. Please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are available here. The Emperor was furious. He hated that vicious woman to the core, but everyone around him had been bribed by her. There was no need to mention the little divine doctor and Xiao Lulang since they knew her first. But why didn't she let his son off as well? Children were easy to fool, especially this gluttonous little fatty. Just give him a sweet date and he'll run away. The Emperor didn't think it was difficult to bribe him, nor did he think that he had truly discovered Empress Dowager Zhuang's good points. It was just the Empress Dowager trying to steal people away from him. Qin Chiyu trembled in Concubine Jing's arms. Concubine Jing gently caressed his face. Don't be afraid. Let's go to Grandmother Jing. Qin Chiyu hid in Concubine Jing's arms and refused to come out. The Emperor couldn't really pull Qin Chiyu out of Concubine Jing's arms and teach him a lesson. He suppressed his anger and said, Let's go back to the palace. The group returned to Pure Flower's palace. Qin Chiyu was worried that his father would spank him, so he ran into Concubine Jing's room. The Emperor's mouth twitched as he watched his son run away faster than a rabbit. Concubine Jing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Little Qi is still young. Don't be too harsh on him. You'll make him sad. The emperor snorted. It's better to make him sad than to lose his life. Concubine Jing shook her head with a sigh. Your Majesty, don't you think you've misunderstood the Empress Dowager too much? Renshou Palace isn't a place of tigers and wolves. The Empress Dowager is Little Qi's grandmother. How could she harm Little Qi? The emperor stood in the corridor and looked at the quiet courtyard with a cold gaze. Imperial Mother has probably forgotten what happened to Xiaoheng. How innocent was the 4-year-old Xiaoheng? Didn't he still suffer at her hands? Concubine Jing said. Maybe it's just a misunderstanding. The emperor looked at Concubine Jing and said, how could there be so many misunderstandings? Imperial Concubine Mother's heart is too kind. She always repays evil with good, but some people will not be grateful because of this. Instead, they will become even worse. Then you shouldn't blame Little Qi, Grand Concubine Jing said. He's so young and doesn't know anything. The emperor frowned and said, he is a prince. He was born in such a whirlpool. How can he survive if he doesn't understand? Old Concubine Jing said earnestly, you have to take it slow. You can't be impatient. Weren't you as innocent as Little Qi when you were Little Qi's age? Thinking of the past, a trace of guilt appeared in the emperor's eyes. It was because I became sensible too late that I couldn't properly protect Mother and Ning'an. That was why you suffered so much in the palace. Old Concubine Jing shook her head. Don't say that. We didn't suffer much. The Empress Dowager still gave us a lot of protection. The emperor felt a wave of disgust and anger at the mention of Empress Dowager Zhuang. She didn't give us protection. At most, it was a deliberate scheme. Old Concubine Jing waved her hand. All right. Let's not argue about this. Go and do your work. Little Qi can be taught slowly. There's no rush. At this point, the emperor couldn't continue to hold on to Qin Shiyu. I'll leave Little Qi to you, Mother. Old Concubine Jing smiled gently. I know. I'll have someone send him back to the Empress later. There were a lot of memorials piled up in the imperial study. The emperor went to read them while Old Concubine Jing returned to her room. Qin Shiyu hid behind the pavilion of many treasures and poked his round head out to look carefully. Amused, Old Concubine Jing walked over and sat down on a chair. Come here. Your imperial father has left. Don't be afraid. Qin Shiyu asked suspiciously. Has imperial father really left? Old Concubine Jing smiled. He has left. Grandmother Jing is a monk. I won't lie to you. Oh. Qin Shiyu remembered that little Jing Kong once said that monks didn't lie. That meant that monks didn't lie. Relieved, Qin Shiyu walked to the chair next to Old Concubine Jing and sat down. He sighed in relief. I was scared to death. Old Concubine Jing took out a handkerchief and wiped the sweat off his forehead. Your imperial father won't eat you. Qin Shiyu curled his lips. But he'll beat me. Old Concubine Jing paused in the middle of wiping his sweat. Does your imperial father beat you often? Qin Shiyu thought about it carefully. A few times, but not often. Old Concubine Jing finished wiping his forehead and then his cheeks. Your imperial father is strict with you because he values you. You're his legitimate son. You're different from the other princes. I know. Qin Shiyu knew from a young age that he and his brother, the crown prince, were the legitimate sons of the empress. They were nobler than the other princes. Otherwise, how could he be so domineering in the palace? As the saying went, 7, 8, 9, 9 dogs are disliked. Qin Shiyu was at the age where even dogs were disliked. He was rebellious and unreasonable. Recently, even the crown prince didn't want to see him anymore. Old Concubine Jing said gently, your imperial father is doing this for your own good. Qin Shiyu snorted. Humph, if he's doing this for my own good, he won't lie to me. Old Concubine Jing seemed to be amused by his little appearance. What lies did your imperial father make up? Qin Shiyu said angrily. He said grandmother isn't a good person. In all honesty, the emperor had never said such a thing to him. He just didn't allow Qin Shiyu to go to Renshou Palace. Qin Shiyu was the one who came to the conclusion that Empress Dowager Zhuang wasn't a good person. Although children were innocent, they were very sensitive about certain things. For example, he could feel that the emperor looked at Empress Dowager Zhuang as if she was a bad person. The fact that the emperor didn't allow him to get close to the Empress Dowager proved this point. In addition, Empress Xiao and the people around her were all secretive about Empress Dowager Zhuang. It wasn't strange that he would come to such a conclusion. Old concubine Jing touched his head. What does little Qi think? Is grandmother a good person? Well, Qin Qiu thought about it seriously for a moment and said seriously, she's not a bad person. I was eating in grandmother's palace today, and I spilled a big bowl of soup on her. She didn't punish me or scold me. Old concubine Jing looked at him gently and kindly. Little Qi is a prince. No one would scold little Qi. Qin Qiu snorted. She even scolded imperial father. I heard it. Really? Old concubine Jing smiled and put down her handkerchief with her eyes down. The emperor went to the imperial study to read the memorials. Halfway through, he put the memorials on the table. Eunuch Wei asked with concern. What's wrong, Your Majesty? Is it too stuffy in the room? No. The emperor pinched his sore eyebrows. Eunuch Wei said, You're tired. You can read these memorials tomorrow. There's no morning court session tomorrow anyway. The Zhao kingdom didn't have morning court sessions every day. There were a few days off every month. The emperor took a sip of tea and said lightly, I'm not tired. Then what's troubling you, Your Majesty? Eunuch Wei asked. The emperor didn't answer. Instead, he said, Where's Eunuch He? Go and ask him to come here. Yes, Your Majesty. Eunuch Wei brought Eunuch He to the imperial study under the cover of night. Eunuch He bowed to the emperor. Greetings, Your Majesty. How's the investigation going? The emperor asked in a deep voice. He was talking about the attack on old concubine Jing in the imperial garden. Eunuch He said, I don't have a clue yet. I only found out that the assassin probably snuck into the imperial palace from the cold palace, where the defense is weaker. Also, I think that the assassin probably had an accomplice working with him. The accomplice lured the dragon shadow guards away, so that he could sneak up on old concubine Jing. Unfortunately, the dragon shadow guards were men of sacrifice. They only obeyed orders and never communicated with others. It was impossible to get any information from the dragon shadow guards. As such, Eunuch He didn't bother to interrogate the dragon shadow guards. The emperor knew that the dragon shadow guards were special, so he didn't blame Eunuch He for not doing his job well. However, he was curious as to how the dragon shadow guards were lured away. The dragon shadow guards were different from ordinary secret guards. They wouldn't chase after their masters just because of the slightest disturbance. Unless it was old concubine Jing who ordered them to chase after the assassin, but she didn't. The emperor couldn't figure out who had the ability to lure the dragon shadow guards away. Eunuch He searched the entire imperial palace, and didn't find anyone's body or a trace of blood. In other words, after the dragon shadow guards were lured away, they either didn't see that person, or they saw him but didn't fight him. It was impossible that they didn't see him. The dragon shadow guard should be able to catch up with whoever they wanted. But why didn't they fight? The dragon shadow guards wouldn't attack weak people. It was probably an order from the late emperor to prevent them from killing civilians by accident. Did that person not know martial arts? But if he didn't know martial arts, how could he have lured the dragon shadow guards away? The emperor had a headache thinking about it. Just as the emperor was thinking about this matter, a little eunuch from the palace of earthly tranquility suddenly came to report. Your Majesty. Not good. Something happened to the seventh prince. The emperor hurriedly left his official business and went to Empress Zhao's palace of earthly tranquility. Empress Zhao sent someone to deliver the news to the emperor. Shi Yi sent someone to call the imperial physician. The imperial physician and the emperor were both in the palace of earthly tranquility. The imperial physician didn't have time to salute the emperor, and quickly went to Qin Chiyu's bedchamber with his medicine box. On the wide and soft bed, Qin Chiyu held his little fat belly and rolled around in pain. Mother! I'm in pain. I'm in so much pain. Empress Zhao's heart ached. She sat by the bed and tried to hold her son in her arms. However, Qin Chiyu was in so much pain that he couldn't stay in Empress Zhao's arms. The imperial physician quickly walked over and put down his medicine box. He knelt by the bed and began to take Qin Chuyu's pulse. Eunuch Su and another strong nanny held him down to prevent him from moving. Empress Xiao was so anxious that her eyes turned red. Imperial physician. What happened to the seventh prince? The imperial physician bowed and said, I can only tell your majesty after the examination. Then quickly check. Empress Xiao said. Although the imperial physician was already checking, he still respectfully replied, Yes. Yes. The emperor walked in with a serious expression. What happened to little Qi? Your majesty. Empress Xiao threw herself into his arms with tears in her eyes. Her hot tears fell onto the back of his hand. Empress Xiao, who had always been the empress and never acted rudely in front of the emperor, was crying. It was also at this moment that the emperor felt that his empress was also an ordinary woman, and an ordinary mother. The emperor's heart softened. He patted her shoulder and comforted her. Don't cry. Tell me what happened. Empress Xiao choked and said, I don't know what happened. Little Qi was fine when he came back. Suddenly he held his stomach and said that it hurt. The emperor asked, What did he eat for dinner today? He ate at Renshou Palace. Empress Xiao wiped her tears with a handkerchief and said seriously, Little Da. Little Da dragged his injured body into the room. Obviously, Eunuch Su had punished him just now. He knelt down and kowtowed to the emperor and Empress Xiao. Your majesty, your majesty. Empress Xiao said coldly, Let me ask you, did the seventh prince eat anything strange in Renshou Palace? Strange things? Little Da scratched his head. They all seem strange. I have never seen those flatbread and steamed buns. They look like pigs and fish. The emperor understood. Those were the special snacks that little Jing Kong usually ate in Clearwater Alley. Is there anything else? Then there are some dishes. Xiao Detzi reported the dishes on the table to him. There was no problem. They were all dishes that the emperor and Empress Xiao usually ate. Empress Xiao asked, Then did they give the seventh prince anything to eat alone? It was no wonder that Empress Xiao was so suspicious. It was because the tragedy of Xiaoheng was still vivid in her mind. She didn't want her son to be the second person to be killed by the Empress Dowager. No. Little Da shook his head. Empress Xiao frowned and said, Could it be that they fed him alone but you didn't see it? Have you been guarding the seventh prince all the time? You didn't leave his side at all? Well, Little Da lowered his head guiltily and said in fear, I went to the toilet. You. Empress Xiao was so angry that she almost slapped him. On the other side, the imperial doctor finished his diagnosis. He said to the emperor and Empress Xiao, Your Majesty, Your Highness, the seventh prince ate too much and got a stomachache. I will give him some pills to help with digestion. He can't eat like this anymore. It's harmful to his body. Empress Xiao said angrily, Your Majesty, listen. Renshou Palace is really up to no good. The emperor already knew that Qin Chuyu was taken to Renshou Palace by little Jing Kong. Gu Jiao was there as well. The emperor didn't think that Gu Jiao would let Qin Chuyu eat uncontrollably. The imperial doctor gave Qin Chuyu some pills to help with digestion. Qin Chuyu finally felt less painful after farting a few times. He heard the argument just now. His father and mother thought that it was his grandmother who fed him like this. Actually, it wasn't. But if he told the truth, he had to be punished. He was in a dilemma. In the past, Qin Chuyu definitely wouldn't tell the truth. He was most afraid of being punished by his father. In order to avoid punishment, he could go against his conscience and lie. But this time he chose to tell the truth. He gritted his teeth, steeled his heart and said, I didn't eat too much in Renshou Palace. I ate again after leaving Renshou Palace. Gu Jiao told me not to eat anymore in Renshou Palace. I couldn't resist. What did you eat? The emperor asked. Qin Chuyu didn't dare to look into his father's eyes. He lowered his head and said, I ate a few pieces of osmanthus cake, and drank a bowl of iced sour plum juice. Empress Zhao's eyes turned sharp. Who gave this food to the seventh prince? This empress already warned you not to secretly give the seventh prince food. This empress wants to see who dares to disobey this empress order. Eunuch Su said in a small voice, Your Majesty, Cunning Palace didn't make iced sour plum juice today. Eunuch Wei cleared his throat and said to the emperor, "Your Majesty, Pure Flower's palace made it." The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. There are millions of novels to read for free. There are all kinds of novels that you can't find online. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/111490685. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website, zhbqg.com. Chapter 344. The latest chapter isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online. The servants of Pure Flower's palace didn't have the guts to give Qin Chuyu random food. Empress Xiao looked at the emperor, who was even more clueless about the situation than she was. It didn't seem like he was the one who gave it to Qin Chuyu. Then there was only one person left. Empress Xiao bit her lip and didn't say anything. She walked over to the bedside and silently hugged her son, who was suffering from abdominal pain. The emperor pinched his sore brows and sighed helplessly. It was already very late by the time the emperor returned to Pure Flower's palace. Qin Chuyu made a ruckus for half the night before he finally fell asleep in Empress Xiao's arms. He was still twitching even after he fell asleep, muttering, "Imperial father, don't punish this son. This son knows his mistake." Empress Xiao's heart ached so much that she shed tears. "Your Majesty, be careful," Eunuch Wei said with a lantern in hand. The emperor paused and walked up the steps with a cloth in his hand. There was a thin figure standing at the end of the corridor. He only recognized it as concubine Jing when he got closer. "It's so late. Imperial mother, why aren't you resting yet?" Concubine Jing held a string of prayer beads in her hand and couldn't hide the worry in her eyes. "I heard little Qi is sick." The emperor nodded. He ate too much at night and got a stomachache. He's fine now." "It's a sin." Concubine Jing held the prayer beads and closed her eyes. "If I knew he ate so much at night, I wouldn't have given him any desserts or sour plum juice." The emperor sighed. "It's not your fault, Imperial mother. I don't know what he ate at night. This child is greedy and always wants to eat more. That's why he's so fat." Concubine Jing looked at him and said, "Then I'll be more careful in the future." Her eyes were filled with guilt. The emperor was a bit annoyed at first, but now he only felt heartache. He didn't bring her back to let her be bullied. She was his imperial mother, and Qin Chuyu was her imperial grandson. What was wrong with her feeding her grandson? She couldn't be doing this on purpose. She just doted on him too much. The emperor said, "Imperial mother's injuries. You should go back and rest. When little Qi recovers, I'll have him come pay his respects." Grand concubine Jing nodded. The emperor went to the imperial study to read the memorials for a while before going to rest. Perhaps it was because there were too many things on his mind, but the emperor did not sleep well that night. In a daze, he seemed to feel someone push open the door to his room. He couldn't open his eyes. He tried to summon the palace servants, but he found that he couldn't make a sound. He tried to sit up, but he couldn't exert any strength. It was as if his entire body was frozen. Using all his strength, he could only open his eyes a tiny slit. He saw that person slowly walking towards him. Because he couldn't move, he had the illusion that he was a fish on a chopping board. That person's approach made him uneasy and made him feel danger. When the man got closer, he realized that the man was holding a dagger in his hand. The cold gleam of the dagger stung his eyes. "Who are you?" He desperately wanted to ask, but his throat seemed to be completely numb. His heart was filled with fear. Finally, that person sat down beside his bed and raised the dagger, stabbing it down toward his heart. At that moment, he saw the man's face clearly. "Mother!" The emperor screamed and woke up from his sleep. He was drenched in cold sweat, with large beads of sweat rolling down his forehead. His heartbeat was violent, and his breathing was irregular. His eyes were still filled with the terror from the nightmare. Eunuch Qin got up from the small bed and walked over to the emperor's side. He lifted the bright yellow curtains and asked worriedly, "What's wrong, Your Majesty?" The emperor's expression frightened him. He hurriedly hung the curtains on a hook and lit up the candlesticks on the candlesticks. He then returned to the bedside and asked, "Are you feeling unwell, Your Majesty?" The emperor sat up and gasped for breath. He wiped the cold sweat off his forehead with his sleeve. "I'm fine. I just had a nightmare." He actually dreamed that concubine Jing had come to kill him. That was too absurd. It was said that one would dream of what they thought of during the day. Could it be that he was dissatisfied with concubine Jing because of the recent events? Or was it because he was suspicious? Then he was too much of a bastard. Everyone in the world could harm him, but concubine Jing wouldn't. Eunuch Qin said earnestly, "Your Majesty has been busy with state affairs recently, and there are so many things going on in the imperial harem. There's no end to state affairs. Your Majesty needs to take care of your body. This servant doesn't know how many more years I can accompany Your Majesty, so you must take care of yourself." The emperor said unhappily, "How old are you? Why can't you accompany me for a few more years?" That Qin fellow didn't even say that he couldn't accompany the Empress Dowager for a few more years. The emperor was a sentimental person. Eunuch Wei had followed him when he was at his lowest point, so he would always remember his good deeds. Eunuch Wei smiled. "Yes, Your Majesty." However, he thought to himself, "Your Majesty really can't stop talking about the Empress Dowager." The emperor was no longer sleepy after the nightmare. He couldn't be bothered to go to the imperial study, so he had Eunuch Wei bring the memorials to his bedchamber to read. Eunuch Wei brought 2 clever eunuchs with him. They placed the memorials on the desk and lit the lamp for the emperor. The emperor took a bath and changed into a clean set of clothes. He sat behind the desk and began to read the memorials. "You go to sleep," the emperor said to Eunuch Wei. Eunuch Wei wasn't as old as Eunuch Qin, but he was still a few years older than the emperor. The emperor had listened to his words, and was worried that if he continued to waste time, his body would collapse. How could Eunuch Wei not understand the emperor's intentions? He smiled and said, "This servant was just saying that. Your Majesty, don't take it to heart. This servant's body is fine, and I'm not sleepy right now." The emperor knew that if he forced him to sleep, he wouldn't be able to sleep well, so he didn't insist. After the emperor read a few memorials, the fear brought about by the nightmare finally dissipated. However, he still didn't feel sleepy, so he continued to read the memorials. After the storm, the number of patients increased, and the clinic became busy again. Gu Jiao received 2 patients, both on the same street. Gu Jiao came out of the home of the first patient. On her way to the home of the second patient, she passed by a Go Club. Usually, a Go Club was a relatively quiet place, but this Go Club was especially busy today. It was filled with people inside and outside, and the sound of sharp inhales could occasionally be heard. Gu Jiao looked strangely. Because the patient was still waiting, she didn't go in. There was a grand game going on in the Go Club. The reason it was grand was because one of the players was the recently famous Mao Shanjusher. Mao Shanjusher was in his early 40s. He wasn't a native of Jing, and had only traveled to Jing last year. Because he was good at Go, he had been invited by many Go clubs, and some wealthy families had even invited him to play. He was very valuable, and all the Go players in Jing were proud to play against him. If they were lucky enough to beat him once or twice, they would be praised for many years. Unfortunately, no one had beaten him yet. The crown princess was very skilled at Go, but the two had never played against each other. Mao Shanjusher only played against one person a day. That person had to spend a lot of money to buy a game or defeat all the Go players in the Go club that day to qualify to play against him. The Go player sitting across from him was the latter. It wasn't appropriate to call him a Go player, but an old beggar. Yet this old beggar in ragged clothes was sitting in front of Mao Shanjusher. It was an unparalleled spectacle. It was unknown whether the spectators were here to watch the game, or to watch the spectacle. In short, the Go players' hall was packed to the brim, and there was almost no space to stand. In a side room, a female official dressed as a commoner said to the crown prince consort, A powerful old beggar has come and is playing chess with Maoshan lay practitioner. After Maoshan lay practitioner defeats him, he can come and visit the crown prince consort. No hurry. The crown princess didn't let anyone interrupt their game. Wait until he's finished before calling him over. She had come to find someone to play Go with. She had heard that this Maoshan Jusher was very skilled at Go. She needed to maintain her standard, so she needed to play against a skilled Go player. But to her surprise, the old beggar won in the end. The female official exclaimed, "It can't be? Maoshan Jusher lost." Victory and defeat are common in war. The crown princess had strict requirements for herself, but she didn't have such high requirements for others. The female official asked, "Then does the crown princess still want to play Go with him?" The crown princess wouldn't dismiss the other party's ability just because he lost once, and she wouldn't immediately think highly of the old beggar just because he won once. There were always people in this world with extraordinary luck. She still believed in fame accumulated over time. Let him come in and play a few games with this consort. Yes, the crown princess played a few games with Maoshan Jusher. Maoshan Jusher's Go skills were quite good, and the crown princess did learn something from the game. However, there was still a gap between him and the level of an expert in her mind. Unfortunately, there weren't many people in Zhao country who were more skilled than him. "Thank you for your teachings, sir. I will come again another day." The crown princess politely bid farewell to Maoshan Jusher and left the Go club. After sitting in the carriage, the female official lifted the curtain and suddenly exclaimed in shock, "Crown princess, look." The crown princess looked over and saw an old beggar and a young girl in green with a small basket on her back squatting at the corner of the street. "It's her?" The crown princess' expression stilled. "It's him." The female official thought that the crown princess was speaking of the old beggar and responded, "He was the one who won against Maoshan Jusher at the Go club just now." The crown princess didn't speak. She didn't even look at the old beggar. Her gaze was completely attracted by Gu Jiao. The scene she had seen that night in the alley had given her too much of a shock. Now, whenever she saw Gu Jiao, she couldn't help but recall how she had been pressed against the wall by Xiao Lulang. She felt irritated. Gu Jiao was playing Go with the old beggar. She wasn't wearing a mask today, but the old beggar recognized her when she spoke. Today the old beggar wasn't messing around. He seriously played a round with Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao was beaten very miserably. The old beggar roared with laughter. "How is it, little doll? Now you know how good I am." Gu Jiao's face was completely black. She stood up to leave. The old beggar called out, "Hey, you're leaving already? Play another round." Gu Jiao's expression was cold. 10 taels, just one round. The old beggar. She had to patronize the Go club's business tomorrow? Gu Jiao took the silver and walked back. When she passed by the crown princess carriage, the crown princess lifted the curtain and called out to her, "Dr. Gu, please wait." Gu Jiao looked indifferently at her. Her calm face seemed as though nothing in the world could surprise her. "Is something the matter?" she asked. The crown princess was not too surprised by Gu Jiao's attitude, but she couldn't accept it. After all, she was the crown princess, and she was just a female doctor that didn't even have a title. She suppressed the uneasiness in her heart and calmly said, "If Dr. Gu likes to play Go, you can go to the Go club. There's no need to associate with beggars on the road. Dr. Gu is the daughter of Marquis Ding and Fu. You are also the wife of top scholar Xiao. You are also imperial grandmother's favorite. It's best if you don't lose your status." Gu Jiao asked, "What does it have to do with you?" The female official angrily said, "What are you saying? Our crown princess thinks highly of you." Gu Jiao said, "Do I need her to think highly of me?" The female official choked. "You." The crown princess slightly frowned at the female official. The female official called Ping, or coldly glared at Gu Jiao and unwillingly closed her mouth. The crown princess then pretended to say to Gu Jiao, "If Miss Gu doesn't mind, I can introduce Miss Gu to the Go club. There are many good Go clubs in the capital. The nearby Qinghuan Go club is pretty good. Of course, if Miss Gu wants to be closer to the medical center, you can go to Hao Tian Go club." "No need. Gu Jiao indifferently said, and left without any pretense. Pinger angrily said, Crown Princess, she's too much. Even if she's relying on the Empress Dowager's favor, she can't disregard you like this. The Crown Princess did not get angry. She had seen too many arrogant people relying on favor. Being in the limelight for a while was not important. Being in the limelight for a lifetime was skill. Hadn't Gu Jinyu previously been in the limelight? In the end, she had fallen into the dust in less than half a year. Now when the people of the capital talked about her, how could they still have any of the admiration they had in the past? At most, she had relied on her marriage with royal prince and to barely regain her honor. In any case, Gu Jinyu was gentle, humble, and well-educated. This Miss Gu's temperament was far worse than Gu Jinyu's. So how long could she be arrogant? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964226/111490624. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 345. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel was updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels were read for free. All the novels that could not be found online were available here. Gu Jiao returned to Jadewater Alley. Little Jing Kong had finished school early and was looking around at the entrance. When he saw Gu Jiao, he ran over. Jiao Jiao. Yes. Gu Jiao held his chubby little hand and led him inside. However, he turned around and looked behind Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao paused and asked, Are you waiting for brother-in-law? Xiao Luleng had gone to the countryside. He said that if he was quick, he would be back by the end of the month. If he was slow, it would be next month. Little Jing Kong widened his eyes and said seriously, I'm not. Gu Jiao smiled. Brother-in-law will be back soon. Little Jing Kong sighed like a little adult. I'm worried that he won't do well. This is his first business trip. I didn't have time to tell him. Gu Jiao laughed. Were all children so interesting? Gu Jiao asked in amusement. What do you want to tell your brother-in-law? Little Jing Kong said seriously, I want to tell him to unite with his colleagues and not make his boss angry. Don't think that you're better than others just because you're the top scholar. You have to suffer. It can't be like at home. What he said made sense. Who did he learn that from? Gu Jiao did not know whether to laugh or cry. She pinched his little face. Children were so fun. The two of them went into the house. Gu Yan and Gu Xiaoshan went to learn their skills. Yao Shi was in the yard making Gu Jinyu's wedding dress. Gu Jinyu's wedding was set at the end of the year. The timing was a little rushed. When a normal family got married, half a year would have passed. After that, they would have to prepare for the wedding and inform all the relatives. But Gu Jinyu's situation was special. The emperor had set the wedding date at the end of the year. Such beautiful clothes. Little Jing Kong touched the cloth on Yao Shi's leg and said, Who did you make this for? I made it for older sister Jinyu, Yao Shi said. Little Jing Kong tilted his head and asked, Why did you make such beautiful clothes for her? Not even Jiao Jiao. The child didn't have any ill intentions. She was just curious. Why was it that elder sister Jinyu had one, but Jiao Jiao didn't? Jiao Jiao was the older sister. Shouldn't he cook for the older sister first? These words caused Yao Shi to freeze. That's right, her Jiao Jiao got married in the countryside. She didn't even have a proper wedding dress, nor did she have any dragon, phoenix, incense, or parents who doted on her. She got married alone. To be exact, she was chased out of the house as a little jinx. Both of them had been forced, so they were only husband and wife in name, and had yet to consummate their marriage. Thinking of this, a trace of guilt flashed through Yao Shi's heart. She could not even continue with the wedding dress. Come and eat grapes. Next to the ancient well, Gu Jiao washed a bunch of shiny purple grapes. Little Jing Kong's attention was quickly attracted, and he ran over. He squatted down, picked the biggest and brightest grape, and fed it to Gu Jiao. Jiao Jiao, eat. Okay. Gu Jiao ate the grape he fed her. After that, little Jing Kong picked another grape and gave it to Yao Shi. He didn't forget senior servant Fang, Yu and the young master next door. Overall, he was a child who could make people go crazy when he made a fuss, but when he was sensible, he could soften people's hearts. However, the old chancellor was not in the mood to eat the grapes little Jing Kong gave him. Recently, he was worried about his storybook. At the beginning of the month, he taught the script for the third book. The plot of the third book was about the hostage Yun Ting overthrowing the imperial power of the enemy dynasty. In order to save her dynasty, the sixth princess did not hesitate to give herself to Yun Ting and become Yun Ting's concubine. When General Fu returned from suppressing the bandits, he found that his sweetheart was taken away by Yun Ting. In a fit of anger, he asked to go north. He made a military pledge in front of the imperial court that he would not return to the court until he rescued the sixth princess. He led 100,000 troops to the Tsongshui River and fought with Yun Ting to the death. When Yun Ting was a hostage in the state of Great Xia, he had received General Fu's favor. General Fu also received help from Yun Ting when he went on an expedition. The two of them should have become good brothers, but they turned against each other for the sake of national enmity and a woman. The third book stopped here. The fourth book was the last book. In this book, General Fu died under Yun Ting's sword, and the 100,000 troops were all annihilated. However, the death of General Fu and the soldiers of the state of Great Xia aroused the hatred in the sixth princess' heart. Although she loved Yun Ting deeply, she finally killed Yun Ting with a knife. She used the dagger that Yun Ting gave her on their wedding night. At the end of the book, there was a heavy downpour. The sixth princess held the blood-stained dagger and walked out of the palace barefoot. She laughed crazily. The rain wet her clothes and tightly clung to her body, outlining her 2-month pregnant belly that Yun Ting did not notice. She raised her head and looked at the heavy rain. Her stomach suddenly hurt. The story came to an abrupt end here. Because there was not much content in this book, the old chancellor handed in the manuscript early. The first 3 books sold so well that as soon as the manuscript was handed in, the study room copied it overnight. This book was elegant and popular, and the audience was very wide. Any one of the 8-legged essays and poems in it was not inferior to the literary talent of the top 3. There were once people speculated whether The Record of Cloud Court was an 8-legged essay written by the new top scholar, because the two people's literary talent and style were similar, but it was not as sharp as the 8-legged essay written by the top scholar Xiao. Of course, there were also people who suspected that The Record of Cloud Court was written by the top scholar Xiao. They went to the Hanlin Academy to inquire about the news, but the result was not. In short, because the audience was too wide and there were too many people who read it, as soon as the ending came out, it immediately caused a bombardment of a wave of book chasers. What about The Record of Cloud Court? Why did Yun Ting die? General Fu, who was brave and good at fighting, also died. General Fu fought for the sixth princess all his life and died without even letting her know his feelings. This was too tragic. And the sixth princess? She was actually pregnant with Yun Ting's flesh and blood? Her stomach hurt a little. Did she manage to keep the baby or not? The public anger was too terrible, and the study room was bombarded one after another. In the end, a young man came out of nowhere and wrote The Epilogue of Cloud Court. There were not many words, but only a few pages, but this tragedy was perfectly reversed. It wrote that all this was a dream of Yun Ting. After waking up, Yun Ting understood that the sixth princess was just an ungrateful and vicious woman who stabbed him at the critical moment. He decisively gave up the opportunity to save the sixth princess when they first met, kicked the sixth princess down, and then went to find General Fu to enjoy the Jianghu with him. F***ck the life of a hostage. F***ck the black-hearted white lotus. I want to travel the world with Xiao Fu. Then this epilogue became popular. At first, It was only circulated in a small circle at some poetry and tea parties. Later, the study room that sold The Record of Cloud Court printed it and sold it to a large number of talents and beauties in the capital. Old Chancellor was stupefied. What kind of nonsense was this? The writing was immature, the sentences were illogical, the words were obscure, and the words were incoherent. Was it for people to read? The old Chancellor felt that this epilogue was a complete insult to his work, so he decided to go to the study room and ask them to take down this epilogue. He couldn't let others take advantage of him for nothing. Unexpectedly, the boss of the study room told him, "Well, now you are taking advantage of others." The epilogue sold so well that many people who didn't read the foreword ran to buy The Record of Cloud Court, one after another, wanting to know how dramatic the three people used to be. The sixth princess was originally a pitiful character, but now she was being scolded to the sky by those scholars and beauties in the capital who had read the afterword and the foreword. Even the author was being scolded to the sky. The old Chancellor's mouth kept twitching. Who wrote the epilogue? It was too wicked. In the end, the old Chancellor didn't force the study room to take down the epilogue because the banknotes were really fragrant. The old Chancellor, who made a lot of money, immediately bought a new carriage. The new carriage would be used by Jiao Jiao and the others in the future. Guyan had hidden guards, so he didn't have to worry about a coachman. He could use the old carriage himself. He wasn't picky anyway. The money he earned in the beginning was to buy it for his children. At the end of June, there was a small rainstorm, which washed away an official road. The officials of the Ministry of Revenue and the Hanlin Academy, who were planning to return to the capital, were also stranded in the village. Marquis Gu had just finished repairing the capital's sewers and was transferred by the Ministry of Works to repair the roads. Recently, old concubine Jing didn't make any moves. It was unknown if she guessed that she was about to be exposed, so she simply stopped. As the saying goes, if you don't seek death, you won't die. How could she not do it? She must be allowed to do it. Jiao Jiao. The old Chancellor, who was cutting vegetables in the kitchen, called Gu Jiao over. Today, senior servant Fong went back to his son's house, so he would be making dinner. Gu Jiao put down the half-chopped firewood in his hand and walked into the kitchen. "Great uncle, you called for me?" Although their relationship had been clarified, the family and neighbors still didn't change their words. The old Chancellor didn't have any objections. It didn't matter whether he was Zhuang Jin's old companion or not. The important thing was that he couldn't let down his children's filial piety. The old Chancellor whispered, "Come with me to the palace later. I'll go see His Majesty, and you go see the Empress Dowager. Let's talk like this. I digression and my claws are almost broken. Do I have a monthly ticket?" The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. There are novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896428226/111490405. HTML Genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 346. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel was also updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels were read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online here. The sky darkened earlier in July than in June. When the emperor came out of the imperial study, there was only a hint of grayish blue left on the horizon. By the time he returned to Pure Flower's palace, even the last hint of light had disappeared. Night fell, and stars flashed in the firmament. When the emperor entered Pure Flower's palace, the palace servants all bowed to him. He asked, "Has imperial concubine Dowager gone to bed?" A young eunuch replied, "In reply to your majesty, there is no such thing." The emperor said to eunuch Wei, "Zhen will go and see imperial concubine Dowager." You go back by yourself. This old servant is not tired. Sigh. Eunuch Wei helplessly replied, yes. The emperor went to concubine Jing's bedchamber. She was kneeling in front of a Buddhist shrine with prayer beads in one hand and a wooden fish in the other. Her eyes were closed as she devoutly chanted Buddhist scriptures. The emperor did not disturb her and quietly waited for her to finish knocking on the wooden fish. After Granny Kai helped her up, she seemed to see the shadow on the ground. She turned her head and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. When did His Majesty come? How long have you been here? The emperor said. I've just arrived. After listening to Mother recite Buddhist scriptures for a while, my heart suddenly calmed down a lot. Grand Concubine Jing looked at him and asked, is there something bothering you, Your Majesty? Of course there were. Storms, natural disasters, bandits, and man-made disasters. Rumor had it that the Chen Kingdom's borders were on the verge of making trouble again. There was also no clue as to who was behind the assassination attempt on Grand Concubine Jing. The first few were dealt with by the civil and military officials of Zhao country. Only the last murderer left the emperor at a loss. It's nothing. I'm just tired from working so hard on state affairs. The emperor decided not to let concubine Jing worry. Granny Kai, go to my room and bring me the calming incense, Grand Concubine Jing ordered. Yes. Granny Kai answered and left. The emperor helped Grand Concubine Jing to the Autumn Splendor Pavilion. The two of them sat down on the chairs. A little palace maid served up desserts and scented tea, which was old concubine Jing's favorite. The emperor liked Longjing tea, but strong tea couldn't be drunk at night. Go get some fruits, Grand Concubine Jing said. Yes. The little palace maid turned around and brought over a plate of fresh grapes and a few delicious pears. Grand Concubine Jing was about to peel a pear for the emperor, but just as she picked up the dagger on the table, the teacup in the emperor's hand fell to the ground with a bang. Grand Concubine Jing was taken aback. What's wrong, Your Majesty? Did you burn yourself? No, I didn't hold it firmly. The emperor wiped off his cold sweat and said, what was wrong with him? Mother Jing was merely peeling a pear for him, but the nightmare of her stabbing him with a knife flashed through his mind. I've been so tired recently that my brain isn't working properly. Old concubine Jing put down the dagger and pear, and took out a handkerchief to wipe the tea off the emperor's clothes. The emperor, however, unconsciously leaned back. Old concubine Jing's hand froze in midair as she stared at him blankly. The emperor realized that he had lost his composure, and secretly scolded himself for being unfilial. His mother was so concerned about him. How could he disappoint his mother? He took the handkerchief from concubine Jing and said, don't get mother's clothes wet. Zhen will do it myself. Old concubine Jing smiled. Okay. Fortunately, the emperor didn't lose his composure again. The mother and son chatted happily until Eunuch Wei came to report that the old chancellor was seeking an audience. Only then did the emperor get up and bid farewell to old concubine Jing. Old concubine Jing said, I'll have the calming incense delivered to your bedchamber. The emperor smiled. Thank you, mother. The emperor then went to the imperial study. The old chancellor bowed respectfully. This subject greets your majesty. The emperor went around to the desk and sat down. All right, enough with the empty formalities. What business do you have in the palace at this hour? Your majesty, Jiao Jiao was attacked by an assassin. What? The emperor stood up abruptly. How did she get attacked? Where is she? Is she injured? The old chancellor sighed inwardly. At least you have a conscience and know how to care about Jiao Jiao. Don't worry, your majesty. This happened a few days ago. Her injuries are fine now. The emperor heaved a sigh of relief, but soon frowned again. How many times was she attacked? The old chancellor said, 3 times. Actually, it was 2 times. The first time was when she went to the nunnery with concubine Rui Wang, and was saved by King Ning. The second time was when she encountered the dragon shadow guards, and met Gu Chongqing not long ago. The old chancellor didn't intend to tell the emperor that the other party was the dragon shadow guards. Before Xiao Lulang left, he told him one thing. It turned out that the dragon shadow guards weren't only left to the emperor by the late emperor. Princess Xinyang also had one. As for whether there were others, Xiao Lulang wasn't sure. The old chancellor didn't dare to say that there was absolutely no one. The emperor didn't seem to know that there were other dragon shadow guards in Zhao country, but it was hard to say whether old concubine Jing, this old fox, knew. If she knew and insisted that it wasn't her dragon shadow guards, wouldn't it implicate the innocent? The emperor's expression turned cold. Why didn't you tell me earlier that the little divine doctor had suffered so many assassination attempts? The old chancellor had an expression of being wronged. It's this girl who didn't tell me. If I didn't find a new scar on her hand today, I wouldn't have known that she had encountered so much. Commandant Gu is also muddle-headed, helping her hide this kind of thing from me. It was like what the siblings would do. Both of them were taciturn. The emperor frowned. The old chancellor continued, Your Majesty must have heard about that time when she was saved by King Ning. The emperor knew about this, but he didn't think of Gu Jiao. He thought that the other party was targeting Rui Wang's residence. The old chancellor said, The second time was a few days ago. A servant lied that someone in his family was sick and asked Jiao Jiao to treat them. They were ambushed on the way. Fortunately, Commandant Gu arrived in time. In addition, the Jiao Jiao had powerful hidden weapons in his hands. Only then did he manage to scare the other party. The emperor was slightly surprised. Even Gu Chongqing wasn't a match for the assassins? That's right. There was a very powerful assassin among them. I don't know where he came from. The old chancellor said calmly. As for the third time, it was just now. We met another assassin on the way to the palace. Fortunately, there wasn't that powerful assassin this time. Otherwise, both of our lives would have been over. This was made up purely for the effect of superposition. Why did you enter the palace so late at night? The emperor asked. The old chancellor sighed. I originally dragged her here to report to your majesty about the assassination. Who knew that she would be assassinated again? Fortunately, it was more daunting than dangerous. Then where is she? The emperor asked anxiously. The old chancellor looked embarrassed and said with a dry smile. She said that your majesty hates her now and definitely won't stand up for her. She might as well go to the Empress Dowager. This provocation properly angered the emperor. The emperor slapped the table. Who said that I won't stand up for her? Am I so untrustworthy in her heart? Isn't that because you're blind? Cough cough. Too much, too much. He was a subject. He shouldn't criticize the emperor like this. Ever since he became the emperor's father, he couldn't control his guts anymore. This wasn't good, this wasn't good. The old chancellor straightened his expression and cupped his hands. Your Majesty, this subject boldly guesses that the person who murdered the imperial concubine and the person who murdered Jiao Jiao are the same group. The emperor asked suspiciously, How do you know? The old chancellor boldly looked at the emperor. Your Majesty, if something happened to the imperial concubine, who would be the first person you suspect? Empress Dowager Zhuang. The answer was almost obvious. Last time, the murderer disguised herself as Gu Jiao to assassinate imperial concubine Jing, and wanted to frame Empress Dowager Zhuang. Unfortunately, the emperor saw through it. The emperor still had a lingering fear when he recalled it. He clenched his fists. But what does this have to do with Jiao Jiao? If something happened to her, I wouldn't suspect the Empress Dowager. Would the Empress Dowager suspect me? The old chancellor shook his head. That's not it. However, because of Jiao Jiao, the relationship between your majesty and the Empress Dowager has eased up. This is an indisputable fact. The emperor ridiculed. Who has eased up with her? The old chancellor automatically ignored the emperor's insincere bravado and said seriously, Your Majesty knows what it is, so I won't say more. Jiao Jiao is the only person who has both your Majesty's favor and the Empress Dowager's love. If she dies, there will be no possibility for your Majesty and the Empress Dowager to reconcile. All of this is aimed at driving a wedge between your Majesty and the Empress Dowager. The emperor didn't say anything. After thinking carefully, it did make some sense. The old chancellor struck while the iron was hot. Lulang told me that the imperial concubine was thrown into the supreme liquid pool by the assassin. Your Majesty must be looking for the assassin's movement. I wonder if your Majesty has any clue. No. The emperor had a big headache when it came to this. The old chancellor looked up at the roof and sighed again. It seems that the assassin realized that he had acted rashly and alerted the enemy. In order to avoid the limelight, he completely hid himself. The other party is very cunning and didn't leave any trace. But Your Majesty, are you really going to wait for death? The imperial concubine and Jiao Jiao's lives will be hanging on the tip of a knife as long as the murderer is not eliminated. These words completely poked the emperor's weak spot. Apart from his own son, weren't the people he cared about the most now imperial concubine Jing and Gu Jiao? He couldn't let anything happen to them. The emperor stared at the old chancellor and asked, "Then tell me, what should I do?" The old chancellor raised his eyebrows. "Lure the snake out of its hole. As long as Your Majesty is willing to cooperate with me, I will definitely have a way to make her reveal her true form." Digression, 4 more votes to break the 1,000 mark. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896428226/111490037. HTML Genius remembered this site's address in a second. www.zhhbqg.com Biku Pavilion Mobile Reading Website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 347. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all available here. No, I won't listen. No, over my dead body. In the bedchamber of Renshou Palace, Empress Dowager Zhuang rejected Gu Jiao's suggestion without hesitation. There was no room for negotiation. Gu Jiao made a strange sound. She had known her great-aunt for a long time, but this was the first time she had been rejected so thoroughly. In fact, she didn't do anything. She just conveyed her son-in-law's words and asked her to temporarily put aside her prejudice and cooperate with the emperor to lure out the mastermind. But it seemed that her great-aunt was not satisfied with her son-in-law's suggestion. Eat 3 more candied plums a day? Gu Jiao threw a sugar-coated bullet. Empress Dowager Zhuang was unmoved. 4. 5. Gu Jiao measured her 5 fingers. Empress Dowager Zhuang defended her position. She didn't want to give Gu Jiao a chance to break her defense line with a sugar-coated bullet. She went to the study without looking back. Alas! Gu Jiao sighed. Gu Jiao walked out slowly. She came to the courtyard of the front hall and sat on the lonely swing. When little Jing Kong was here, this place was as quiet as when he was gone. The night in July was not very cool. It was still hot, but because of the continuous rain, it was not as stuffy as before. Gu Jiao sat on the swing and swung it in boredom. She sighed again and again. Eunuch Qin walked over with a horsetail whisk. "Miss Gu." Gu Jiao tapped the ground with the tip of her foot and stopped the swing that was swinging around. "Eunuch Qin," she greeted. Eunuch Qin stood by the swing and looked at Gu Jiao, then looked at the boundless night sky. In his mind he recalled the first time he met Gu Jiao. He thought of her as a little girl who didn't know the rules and didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. After interacting with her for a while, he realized how wrong he was. How was this girl not understanding the rules and not knowing the immensity of heaven and earth? She was clearly trampling on the rules and poking a hole in the sky. She had a calmness that didn't belong to girls her age. And she also had the innocence of a child that girls her age had long abandoned. She didn't have so many tricks up her sleeve, nor did she have so many worldly burdens. If she wanted to treat someone well, she would do it from the bottom of her heart, regardless of the cost, without any reservations or doubts. No matter if that person is good or evil. She had her own beliefs, and they were incomparably firm. No one could easily shake her. For some reason, Her thin and small body seemed to contain endless power. It was a power that made people feel at ease, and also a power that made people want to get close to her. Eunuch Qin would occasionally think that if His Majesty had been as firm and convinced as Miss Gu, he would not have ended up like this with the Empress Dowager today. His Majesty was very clingy when he was young. He was very clingy to the Empress Dowager, even more so than Princess Ning'an. As Eunuch Qin spoke, he seemed to recall something interesting and laughed. This old servant remembers one time. The Empress Dowager brought a young master from the Zhuang family here. That young master didn't know the way, and was frightened by noble consort Lu's dog. The Empress Dowager didn't want to hold him, so she casually held his hand. Who knew that His Majesty would get jealous because of this? He wouldn't eat properly at night and wouldn't sleep well at night. He would lie in bed and throw a tantrum, but he wouldn't say what was wrong with him. Old concubine Jing asked him if he was feeling unwell. He didn't say anything. Princess Ning'an also asked him, but he just sulked and didn't say anything. Gu Jiao's expression was indescribable. Even little Jing Kong wasn't so childish. Then what happened next? Gu Jiao asked. Eunuch Qin recalled with a smile. Later, old concubine Jing sent him to the Empress Dowager's palace, which is the Qianquan Palace where Empress Xiao lives now. His Majesty climbed into the Empress Dowager's bed and slept with her for a night. The next day he was alive and kicking. Gu Jiao curled her lips. So childish. Gu Jiao asked, how old was His Majesty then? Eunuch Qin thought for a moment. About 7 or 8 years old. This old servant doesn't remember the details. He was a little younger than the 7th prince now, and not as fat as the 7th prince. Although His Majesty is tall now, he was as thin as a monkey when he was 7 years old. He looked only 5 years old when he was 7 years old. The Empress Dowager once thought that His Majesty wouldn't be tall in the future. He was about the same as little Jing Kong. It seemed that she didn't have to worry too much about the height of little Jing Kong. Some people did grow up against the wind when they grew up. And then, Gu Jiao felt that this story was quite interesting. Eunuch Qin sighed. Later, His Majesty and the Empress Dowager slowly drifted apart for some reason. This old servant doesn't know when it started. In short, their relationship became more and more strained. Princess Ning'an was caught in a dilemma. After His Majesty ascended the throne, the Empress Dowager held court behind the curtain and sent old concubine Jing to the nunnery. The relationship between the two was completely broken. It sounded quite sad. Gu Jiao couldn't understand complicated emotions, but she put herself in the shoes of little Jing Kong. If one day little Jing Kong abandoned her for another person, she would be very sad, very sad. Emotions were the most wonderful thing in the world. It had nothing to do with blood. It was just that once you became a family, you couldn't lose this person. Was it the same for Grandaunt and old concubine Jing? Gu Jiao asked. Eunuch Qin nodded. The Empress Dowager used to treat old concubine Jing as a friend. But who didn't make a mistake in their youth? The enemy's attack wasn't scary, but the betrayal from the person you trusted the most was the real pain. Gu Jiao paused and asked, even someone as smart as Grandaunt couldn't take His Majesty back from that person? Eunuch Qin shook his head helplessly. It's not that she couldn't. She just didn't want to think of a way. Once her heart was cold, nothing mattered. There's no greater sorrow than a dead heart? Gu Jiao looked at Eunuch Qin and asked. Eunuch Qin nodded. That's right. Gu Jiao had probably experienced this feeling before, but she couldn't remember it. Her childhood memories of being abandoned by her parents had long been reduced to a few voices and images. She could calmly look at them without feeling any pain. This was called numbness. She became numb when she was very young. That was why she could become an agent of the organization, and the most cold-blooded killer. Empress Dowager Zhuang only experienced this when she was middle-aged. She couldn't be completely numb. She could only try to let her heart die. She was Zhuang Jin's, the most powerful Empress Dowager in the Zhao Kingdom. She had her own pride. When she was the Empress, she didn't even bother to compete with the harem for favor. How could she compete with concubine Jing for a man now? Even if that man was her adopted son. Gu Jiao understood. She held the rope of the swing and looked at Eunuch Qin. I understand. Thank you, Eunuch Qin. She wouldn't force her grandaunt to do something she didn't want to do. Since her grandaunt's method didn't work, she would think of something else. Eunuch Qin was secretly pleased. She was such a sensible child. Not only did the Empress Dowager love her, but even he couldn't help but want to love her. Unfortunately, he was a eunuch and didn't have much ability to love her. Gu Jiao got up from the swing and went to Empress Dowager Zhuang's study. Empress Dowager Zhuang was furious when she read the memorials. One of her subordinates was caught cheating again. She wasn't a monarch who used people based on their ability. After so many years in the harem and the imperial court, she deeply understood that there were no fish in the clear water. She had always valued a person's ability. She used people's strengths and tolerated their shortcomings. This didn't mean that her subordinates could do whatever they wanted. There was a limit to everything. They couldn't really kill people or set fires, and they couldn't unscrupulously take advantage of people to satisfy their desires. There was a limit to everything. She wouldn't condone or cover up for anyone who crossed the line. 1,000,000 taels of relief money. You embezzled 950,000 taels of relief money and were caught. If I don't kill you, who should I kill? Empress Dowager Zhuang snorted and threw the memorials into the pile on her left. These were memorials that could be presented to the emperor. With the emperor's temper, he would definitely deal with this matter strictly. Grandaunt. A round head poked in. She didn't need to look to know who it was. Empress Dowager Zhuang responded indifferently. What do you want? Gu Jiao said. It's getting late. I'll go back first. You should rest early. Then, she gently closed the door for her grandaunt. Wait. Empress Dowager Zhuang called her indifferently. Gu Jiao pushed the door open again. She rolled her eyes and stepped over the threshold. Her phoenix eyes stared at Empress Dowager Zhuang without blinking. Empress Dowager Zhuang took a memorial and said casually, Does what I said just now still count? Which sentence? Gu Jiao asked. Empress Dowager Zhuang cleared her throat. It's the sentence of 5. Gu Jiao reached out her hand and looked at her 5 fingers. Then she looked at Empress Dowager Zhuang with bright eyes. It counts. But you don't want to, do you? Empress Dowager Zhuang angrily threw the memorial in her heart. A successful Empress Dowager couldn't go against Candied Plum. Empress Dowager Zhuang said coldly, It counts from today. Okay. Gu Jiao did not hesitate. Coincidentally, her purse was filled with new candied fruits. She took out the candied fruit box, counted 5 of them, and put them in the candied fruit box. The rest were all stuffed into her mouth. Empress Dowager Zhuang. Empress Dowager Zhuang took a deep breath and suppressed her tumbling heart. Isn't it 8? How come there are only 5? Originally, there were 3 a day. If she said there were 5 more, wouldn't it be 8? She just resisted today and didn't eat a single one. Gu Jiao's mouth was full of candied plums. She said vaguely, It's 5. If you don't believe me, think again. Empress Dowager Zhuang recalled her original words in her mind. Eat 3 candied plums every day? She didn't agree at that time. Then this girl said 4? 5? She didn't add the words eat more in the last 2 sentences. Empress Dowager Zhuang punched the memorial. She was too careless. Gu Jiao was very gentle to her grandaunt. She respected her grandaunt's opinion and told her the truth. She didn't hide anything from her grandaunt. The emperor didn't have this kind of treatment. The old chancellor dug one pit after another, making the emperor fall into the pit and unable to get out. However, the emperor obviously had strong resistance to the cooperation with Empress Dowager Zhuang. I can do other things, but not this. I don't want to be in cahoots with that vicious woman. The old chancellor said earnestly, Your Majesty, now is not the time to throw tantrums. It's more important to find out the real culprit behind the scenes. Is your face more important or the life of the old imperial concubine more important? And Jiao Jiao's life? Let's not talk about Jiao Jiao's life. Anyway, she's not related to you. Listen, what kind of nonsense is this? How is the little magic doctor not related to me? So in the whole world, only Zhuang Jin's, that vicious woman, would love her, and I would ignore her? I misspoke. The old chancellor apologized embarrassedly. What I mean is that Jiao Jiao can at least protect herself. The old imperial concubine was persecuted by noble consort Lu in her early years, and has old injuries. If the assassin tries to kill the old imperial concubine again, it will be hard to guard against. This was what the old imperial concubine Jing and her servant said. The old imperial concubine Jing had old injuries and was very weak. The emperor was finally convinced. So in the morning court the next day, there was a scene that made the civil and military officials drop their jaws. The emperor went to the throne room with Empress Dowager Zhuang. Didn't they dislike each other even when they appeared in the same courtyard? Why did they come to court 2 hours earlier today? In the past, either Empress Dowager Zhuang or the emperor arrived first. In short, they didn't see each other face to face. When the two came to the door of the throne room, the emperor stopped and smiled at Empress Dowager Zhuang. He made a gesture of invitation and said, "Mother, please." Empress Dowager Zhuang was so shocked that she almost picked up the sole of her shoe and hit him in the head. Empress Dowager Zhuang tried her best to restrain herself. She nodded and stepped over the threshold calmly. The civil and military officials knelt on both sides of the room with ceremonial tablets in their hands. Empress Dowager Zhuang walked over first. When she was about to go up the steps, Eunuch Qin cleared his throat. Empress Dowager Zhuang's mouth twitched. She stopped and reached out her hand. This time, it was the emperor who wanted to pick up the sole of his shoe and hit himself. Was there such a thing? He didn't say anything about Hua. The emperor held back the twitching in his heart and held Empress Dowager Zhuang's wrist. The mother and son went up the steps and sat in their respective seats. They wiped their hands on their clothes without a trace. Emperor. Disgusted. Empress Dowager Zhuang. Oh, who isn't? Today's morning court was very harmonious. The emperor punished a minister in Empress Dowager Zhuang's camp. Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't stop him. Instead, she praised the emperor for doing a good job. Empress Dowager Zhuang said with concern that the emperor's body seemed to be thinner than before. She said that he should take care of his body and not let state affairs affect his health. Mother, you are right. I will remember it. The emperor said respectfully in the direction of the bead curtain. The civil and military officials wondered if they were blind or deaf. They could actually see the emperor and the Empress Dowager reconcile in their lifetime. Were they crazy, or were they crazy? The news was so shocking that the officials of the two factions who were supposed to be fighting to the death became silent. It wasn't enough to let the civil and military officials see it. They had to let everyone in the harem know. Therefore, after the court, the mother and son went to the imperial garden together. They talked and laughed along the way. Your Majesty, it's time to laugh, Eunuch Wei reminded. The emperor clenched his fists and laughed soullessly. Ha ha ha. Empress Dowager, it's your turn, Eunuch Qin reminded. Empress Dowager Zhuang rolled her eyes and put on a fake smile. Ha ha ha. In less than a day, everyone in the 6 palaces heard that the two had buried the hatchet. Empress Xiao was the first to go to Pure Hua Palace to inquire. Your Majesty, I heard that you and the Empress Dowager. Halfway through her words, she saw the person sitting next to the emperor and bowed. Imperial Concubine Dowager. Imperial Concubine Jing smiled slightly. Empress, come and sit. Yes. In fact, with Empress Xiao's status, there was no need for her to bow to an imperial concubine. However, the emperor regarded her as his mother, so Empress Xiao could only be a filial daughter-in-law. Empress Xiao sat down on the other side of Imperial Concubine Jing. Imperial Concubine Jing smiled and asked, "What did you want to ask your Majesty?" Empress Xiao looked at the two, hesitated, and said, "I heard something about your Majesty and the Empress Dowager. I don't know if it's true, so I asked." The emperor said in a magnanimous tone, "Since you both know, I don't need to say anything more." Empress Xiao couldn't hide her surprise. So it's true? Why? It was indeed strange for two people who had been fighting for decades to bury the hatchet. In order not to arouse suspicion, the old chancellor found a flawless excuse for the two's reconciliation. The emperor had a good memory and didn't forget the words. He said, "Empress, do you still remember when Xiao Heng was poisoned near Rinshou Palace?" Empress Xiao's eyes turned cold. "Of course I remember." Xiao Heng was her brother's son of the first wife. and was her most beloved nephew. He was nearly poisoned to death. She would never forget this grudge for the rest of her life. The emperor said, "The culprit has been found. It wasn't ordered by the Empress Dowager. There's someone else behind the scenes. We have misunderstood the Empress Dowager all these years, and caused the Empress Dowager to suffer an unjust injustice. We are truly ashamed." He really found it hard to say the last few words, but the old chancellor said that these were the lines of the soul. If he didn't say it, it wouldn't be enough to convince people. He seriously suspected that the old chancellor was using his position for personal gain. What? There's someone else? Who? Empress Zhao's soul asked 3 times in a row. Imperial concubine Jing lowered her eyes, picked up her teacup, and quietly took a sip. The emperor said, "The person who poisoned Ahing is called Zhang Xiu. He once worked in the Shang Palace Bureau, and can be considered one of our people." Empress Xiao. "Your Majesty," the emperor sighed with self-blame. "We also didn't expect her to do such a thing. It was our oversight. A few days ago, she suddenly committed suicide by hanging herself. An old friend of hers took away the things she left behind. Only a few days ago did that old friend discover the secret from the things she left behind." Empress Xiao directly stood up. "Your Majesty, this concubine doesn't believe it." The old chancellor did not tell the emperor that Zhang Xiu really was the culprit. He used it as an excuse for the emperor to hear. The emperor thought that what he said was false. Empress Xiao also thought that the emperor had been deceived by someone. None of this was important. What was important was that the person who ordered Zhang Xiu would understand that this matter was true. As long as she believed it, that was enough. Digression. Thank you everyone. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels can be read for free. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/111465539. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 348. The latest chapter isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are available here. At the same time, noble consort Zhuang also asked Empress Dowager Zhuang of Rinshou Palace. She beamed with joy and said, "Aunt, you did this, right? I knew you had the ability to deceive His Majesty." Aunt's move is called winning by surprise. Grand Consort Jing thought she could make things difficult for Aunt by moving back to the palace, but she didn't expect Aunt to be so skillful. She used a few tricks to bury the hatchet with His Majesty. Speaking of which, why didn't Aunt do this earlier? Empress Dowager Zhuang looked at her expressionlessly. Noble Consort Zhuang's heart skipped a beat. She shrunk her neck and said embarrassedly, "What's wrong? Did I say something wrong? Everyone in the palace is saying that the culprit who poisoned Xiaoheng has been found. It's Zhang Xiu. How did Aunt think of making Zhang Xiu the scapegoat? Zhang Xiu is His Majesty's person, so Aunt naturally can't order her around. This suspicion has been washed clean." "Are you done?" Empress Dowager Zhuang said indifferently. "I want to see the memorial." Noble Consort Zhuang pursed her lips and bowed before leaving. The news of Zhang Xiu poisoning Xiaoheng spread like wildfire. Soon, the 6 palaces all knew the truth behind Xiaoheng's death. The emperor had misunderstood Empress Dowager Zhuang for many years. Now that the truth was out, it was reasonable that he would take the initiative to reconcile with Empress Dowager Zhuang. Of course, some people thought that the emperor was using Zhang Xiu to express his guilt and filial piety to Empress Dowager Zhuang. In reality, he was trying to get close to Empress Dowager Zhuang to gain her trust, so that he could catch her off guard in the future. Empress Xiao sat in Pure Flower's palace for a while before returning to Cunning Palace to take care of Qin Qiu. The emperor looked at Grand Consort Jing. How is mother's injury? Grand Consort Jing smiled and said gently, it's not a big deal. The emperor's expression didn't relax at all. He said seriously, the imperial doctor said that mother still needs to recuperate carefully and apply medicine every day. Granny Kai, take good care of mother. Yes, Granny Kai replied respectfully. The emperor made a sound of acknowledgement, then said to Grand Concubine Jing, then this son will go to the imperial study first. If imperial mother feels bored in Pure Flower's palace, then you can take the sedan chair to the imperial garden for a walk. The imperial physician said that staying cooped up in the room is not good for recovery. There's no need to worry about me, Your Majesty. I'm fine with the protection of Your Majesty's dragon Qi. But Your Majesty, Grand Concubine Jing's gaze fell on his haggard brow as she spoke. Your Majesty looks tired. Did you stay up all night to review memorials again? The emperor smiled carelessly and said, recently, many areas have been hit by heavy rain. The disaster situation is serious, so it's inevitable that there will be more reports. Grand Concubine Jing took his hand and reminded him seriously, even so, you have to take care of your body. The emperor patted the old concubine's hand and smiled. I'll be careful. Grand Concubine Jing's expression cleared up a bit. She thought of something and asked, are you using the calming incense that Kai Mama gave you? Yes, the emperor said. Is it still useful? Grand Concubine Jing asked. The emperor smiled. The incense personally made by Imperial Mother is naturally useful. The emperor comforted Grand Concubine Jing a bit more before leaving for the imperial study. He didn't come to eat lunch with Grand Concubine Jing, so he ate in the imperial study instead. Eunuch Wei went to the imperial kitchen and ordered the cooks to make a few delicious dishes. The emperor used to talk about extravagance when eating, but ever since he stayed in Jadewater Alley, he had simplified his meals quite a bit. Eunuch Wei came out of the imperial study and returned to Pure Flower's palace to pick up the memorials he had left in the study last night. When he came out of the study, he ran into Grand Concubine Jing and Kai Mama, who were walking toward him. Esteemed imperial concubine. Eunuch Wei bowed with the memorials in his arms. Kai Mama bowed slightly to him. He also bowed slightly. In terms of rank, he was above Kai Mama, but the imperial palace wasn't a place where rank was the only thing that mattered. The emperor respected Grand Concubine Jing, and when she achieved the Tao, even the chickens and dogs would rise to the heavens. Grand Concubine Jing looked at him with a gentle gaze. Eunuch Wei, how many years have you served His Majesty? Eunuch Wei didn't think for too long and quickly replied, this servant has served His Majesty since he was 14 years old. It's been 30 years since then. Grand Concubine Jing nodded. Do you still remember who chose you to serve His Majesty? Eunuch Wei was startled. He didn't understand why Grand Concubine Jing would suddenly ask this, but he answered truthfully. It was esteemed imperial concubine. Grand Concubine Jing stared at him. Then can I trust you? She used this concubine. Eunuch Wei's expression turned serious. He hugged the memorials tightly with one hand and lifted the hem of his robe with the other to kneel down. Esteemed imperial concubine, if you have any orders, this servant will do it even if I have to die 10,000 times. Grand Concubine Jing raised a hand to help him up. Get up and talk. What do you mean by dying? You've been serving His Majesty for a long time, and he can't bear to leave you. I'm just too worried about His Majesty. I don't trust the words of others, so I can only ask you. Eunuch Wei broke out in cold sweat. He didn't dare to let Grand Concubine Jing support his lowly body, so he quickly stood up and lowered his head. Esteemed imperial concubine, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Grand Concubine Jing asked, how is His Majesty's health? Eunuch Wei thought Grand Concubine Jing would ask about the reconciliation between His Majesty and Empress Dowager Zhuang. He didn't expect her to ask about His Majesty's health. Eunuch Wei felt ashamed that he had misunderstood Grand Concubine Jing. He said, esteemed imperial concubine, His Majesty has been having trouble sleeping and eating lately. Grand Concubine Jing's eyes flickered. Is he in a trance and has nightmares at night? That's right. Eunuch Wei was startled. How did esteemed imperial concubine know? Grand concubine Jing sighed. I've already guessed it. When I spoke with him just now, he seemed a little out of sorts. I asked him if he had stayed up all night reading memorials, but he said there were too many memorials. I'm guessing he just can't sleep, just like when he was young. This child. He'll have nightmares when he's under a lot of pressure, and then he'll ask me to hug him to sleep. I thought that after so many years, he wouldn't be like when he was young anymore. Eunuch Wei said, esteemed imperial concubine is worried for His Majesty. Grand concubine Jing smiled bitterly. He's my son, and I raised him with my own hands. How can I not be worried about him? Oh right, did His Majesty use the calming incense I gave him? It's a prescription I asked a senior monk for. It can cure His Majesty's insomnia and dreams. Eunuch Wei. He used it. Grand concubine Jing. He really used it? Eunuch Wei smiled embarrassedly. He indeed used it. If esteemed imperial concubine doesn't believe me, this servant can give you the ashes. Grand concubine Jing smiled. No need, I believe you. In the entire Pure Flowers Palace, you're the only one who's sincere to His Majesty aside from me. Eunuch Wei bowed. This servant is afraid. Grand concubine Jing handed him a box. This is a new calming incense, and its effects are better than the previous one. Take it and give it to His Majesty. I hope His Majesty won't be troubled by nightmares again. If it's useful, you can come find me again. I still have a lot more. Eunuch Wei took the box. Understood. Grand concubine Jing said. Then I'll take my leave. Eunuch Wei bowed. Farewell, esteemed imperial concubine. After Grand concubine Jing left, Eunuch Wei took the memorial and the calming incense to the imperial study, where he told the emperor about his encounter with Grand concubine Jing. The emperor laughed. We don't remember anything from when we were young. You too, who told you to tell imperial concubine about our situation? You made her worry. Eunuch Wei explained. Your Majesty, esteemed imperial concubine can tell that you're unwell. Wouldn't it make her imagination run wild if you continue to hide it from her? The emperor shook his head. Forget it. Eunuch Wei smiled. Then this calming incense, the emperor said. Since it's a token of imperial concubine mother's goodwill, just leave it there. We'll see how it goes tonight. That night, Eunuch Wei lit up the calming incense that Grand concubine Jing had sent over for the emperor. The scent of this incense didn't seem to be any different from the usual calming incense, except that it was thicker. The emperor quickly fell asleep as expected. Eunuch Wei thought that he would be able to have a good night's sleep this time, and that he would be able to rest as well. However, no one expected that not long after the emperor fell asleep, he had another nightmare. This time, he did not dream that he was lying on the bed, unable to move, and could only be at the mercy of others. He dreamed that he slipped and fell off a cliff, and in the nick of time, he grabbed onto a vine on the edge of the cliff. There was a bottomless abyss below him, and he would be smashed to pieces if the vine were to break. He shouted with all his might, "Protect the emperor! Protect the emperor!" Finally, someone came over. It was Grand concubine Jing. Grand concubine Jing lay down. He was so moved that he was about to cry. Imperial concubine mother truly loved him the most in the world. However, Grand concubine Jing didn't try to pull him up. Instead, she took out a dagger and cut off the vine. The feeling of weightlessness from falling into the bottomless abyss woke the emperor up abruptly. He sat up and gasped for air. Eunuch Wei heard the commotion and walked over with an oil lamp without even putting on his shoes. Your Majesty. He was shocked to see the emperor's pale face and cold sweat. Did you have another nightmare, Your Majesty? I. The emperor clutched at his chest, his body trembling uncontrollably. That dream just now had been too terrifying. That feeling of falling into the bottomless abyss was worse than being stabbed 10,000 times with a knife. It was just a nightmare. He was the emperor, not a cowardly person. How could he be scared to this extent? Even he looked down on himself. Have some tea, Your Majesty. Eunuch Wei put down the lamp and poured a cup of herbal tea to calm the emperor down. The emperor gulped it down, but he didn't calm down. I can't sleep, so I'll go read the memorials. Eunuch Wei couldn't persuade him otherwise, so he could only take the memorials from the imperial study. However, the emperor couldn't calm down at all. The fear from the nightmare was like maggots in his bones, unable to be shaken off. The emperor put down the memorials in frustration. I'm going out for a walk. There's no need for them to follow. Yes. Eunuch Wei held the lantern and left Pure Flower's palace with the emperor. The emperor walked aimlessly. Before he knew it, he had arrived at Cunning Palace. Eunuch Wei asked softly, Your Majesty, do you want to go to the Empress place? This servant will go and pass on the message. The emperor looked at the tightly shut palace doors and said indifferently, No need. It's late, so don't wake Imperial Mother. Eunuch Wei was startled. Imperial Mother? Wasn't Empress Xiao the one living here? Empress Dowager Zhuang had already moved to Renshou Palace after the previous emperor passed away. Eunuch Wei looked at the emperor in confusion. The emperor suddenly came back to his senses and looked at him suspiciously. What did I say just now? Eunuch Wei was startled. Nothing. His Majesty said it's late, so don't wake the Empress. Maybe I heard wrong. His Majesty said the Empress, not Imperial Mother. Empress. The emperor was dazed for a moment. He suddenly frowned and said, Why did I come here? Why didn't you warn me? It's the middle of the night. If I wake up the harem, it'll be chaos again. Yes, it's this servant's fault. Eunuch Wei felt extremely wronged. Ever since you left Pure Flower's palace, you've been rushing here as if you've made up your mind. Who can stop you? Let's go back, the emperor said unhappily. The emperor didn't sleep much that night. After 3 in the morning, he changed his clothes and went to court. He was so tired that he almost fell asleep on the dragon chair. Empress Dowager Zhuang said in a mighty and domineering manner, If you have something to report, court is dismissed. This irritable tone clearly meant that whoever dared to cause trouble would be punished. The civil and military officials all expressed that they had nothing to report. Eunuch Wei shouted, Court is dismissed. After leaving the throne room, Empress Dowager Zhuang sat in her phoenix sedan. She glanced at the emperor, who was watching her leave, and said mockingly, Don't die of exhaustion before the culprit is caught. The emperor said coldly, Imperial Mother doesn't need to worry. I'm fine. Someone's coming. Eunuch Wei reminded. The emperor and Empress Dowager Zhuang immediately smiled. After returning to Pure Flower's palace, Eunuch Wei was invited to Grand Concubine Jing's Autumn Flower Pavilion by Mama Kai. Grand Concubine Jing was copying Buddhist scriptures. When she saw him come over, she smiled and asked gently, Did your Majesty sleep well last night? You didn't have nightmares again, did you? Eunuch Wei looked hesitant. Grand Concubine Jing's smile gradually disappeared. What's wrong? Is your Majesty still unable to sleep? I did sleep, but... Eunuch Wei sighed helplessly. I had nightmares again, and was quite frightened. The brush in Grand Concubine Jing's hand fell on the table. The tip of the brush rolled from the table to the ground, dirtying the page of scriptures she had just copied. How could this be? She murmured in disbelief. Eunuch Wei looked at Grand Concubine Jing strangely. Mama Kai quickly knelt down and picked up the brush. She used a handkerchief to wipe the ink on the floor. Everyone in the world cares for their parents, but His Majesty's body is not in harmony. It's unavoidable that Your Majesty is worried about His Majesty. This servant understands Your Majesty's feelings. But Your Majesty must take care of your body as well. The imperial physician said that your injuries haven't healed yet, so you shouldn't worry too much. Eunuch Wei looked at Grand Concubine Jing. Grand Concubine Jing's face was full of disbelief. She gripped the scriptures on the table so tightly that she crumpled them into a ball. Eunuch Wei was stunned. Mama Kai grabbed Grand Concubine Jing's wrist and stared at her. Grand Concubine, you must hold on. His Majesty is already working hard for the country. You can't be anxious and harm your body. So she was too worried about His Majesty? Eunuch Wei sighed inwardly. I'll have the imperial physician come over later. Mama Kai said gratefully, Thank you for your trouble, Eunuch Wei. Eunuch Wei replied politely, It's my duty. Mama Kai smiled. I'll see you out, Eunuch Wei. Eunuch Wei declined. No need. Mama Kai, you should take good care of the grand concubine. Mama Kai insisted on seeing him to the door. She smiled as she watched Eunuch Wei disappear at the end of the corridor before returning to the Autumn Splendor Pavilion. She looked at Grand Concubine Jing worriedly. Your Majesty. Grand Concubine Jing calmly rolled up her sleeves. All right, I'm fine now. The imperial physician went to the imperial study to take the emperor's pulse. He said that the emperor was overly worried, overworked, and had a weak liver fire. He prescribed a prescription that would strengthen the vitality and calm the mind. The emperor said disdainfully, "This prescription again. How many times have I taken it? When has it ever worked?" Eunuch Wei's eyes rolled. Why don't we go find the little divine doctor? The emperor snorted. Didn't you hear her say that she won't come to Pure Hua Palace for treatment anymore? Eunuch Wei smiled. If she doesn't come to us, we can go find her. You can't go on like this. Even the grand concubine is scared out of her wits. The emperor frowned. In the end he was persuaded. He and Eunuch Wei changed into their outfits and took a carriage to Miracle Hand Hall. However, they were told that Gu Jiao wasn't there. Dr. Song had seen Eunuch Wei before and knew that his master was Qin Chuyu's father, an official of the imperial court. He cupped his hands and politely said, Miss Gu went to see a patient. When will she be back? Eunuch Wei asked. Dr. Song said, she didn't say, but I don't think she'll return to the clinic today. She'll be picking up students from Jing Kong after school. Don't you know where her house is? Why don't you go directly to her house to find her? The master and servant went to Jadewater Alley. Gu Jiao hadn't returned yet, so Madame Yao invited the two into the room. Today, Granny Zhou's two daughters-in-law, Auntie Lu, and her younger sister came to ask Madame Yao for advice on acupuncture. The room was full of women, but Auntie Lu's eyes were always on the emperor. The emperor's scalp was numb. Madame Yao pursed her lips and smiled. She invited the emperor to her great-aunt's room and said, Your Majesty, Master, why don't you sit in the room for a while? Jiao Jiao will be back soon. Thank you, Madame Gu. The emperor thanked her politely. Auntie Lu ran over sneakily. The emperor was so scared that he bolted the door. The emperor sat in the small and cramped room. Because the doors and windows were closed, the light was dim. However, the dimmer it was, the more it magnified his other senses. He smelled a faint, warm aura. There was once this scent in his distant memory. When Gu Jiao came back from picking up little Jing Kong, she heard Eunuch Wei mention that the emperor couldn't sleep at night. She went to knock on her great-aunt's door, but there was no response. Eunuch Wei was scared. Did something happen to His Majesty? Gu Jiao pulled out a dagger and pried open the door. Eunuch Wei quickly pushed the door open and rushed in. Your Majesty! Your Majesty! He was dumbfounded. The emperor, who said that he couldn't sleep, was lying on his back on the bed. He was drooling and snoring. He was snoring and farting in his sleep. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/111463573. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 349. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. Didn't you sleep well? Gu Jiao raised her brows and asked. Eunuch Wei opened his mouth, but couldn't make a sound for a long time. From time to time, the laughter of Auntie Lu's sister and the two daughters-in-law of Granny Zhou's family could be heard. There were also the sounds of their children squabbling in the front yard with little Jing Kong. In the past, His Majesty would find it hard to sleep at the slightest noise in the palace. Now that it was so noisy outside, how could His Majesty sleep so soundly? His Majesty slept from the afternoon to the next morning, and didn't even eat dinner. Gu Jiao watched as the emperor rushed to the carriage with his fluffy hair like a gust of wind, to go to morning court. How did it look like he couldn't sleep? He clearly slept more than she did. Last night, when she stirred up the gunpowder, the entire family was awakened by the explosion. Only the emperor was snoring like thunder, and the entire courtyard was filled with his dragon breath, commonly known as snoring. Oh, Gu Jiao rubbed her chin. I thought I blew him up in the middle of the night. Drive the carriage. What are you standing there for? The emperor slapped the coachman's head. He was full of energy and definitely didn't faint from the explosion. The emperor had a good sleep and felt refreshed. He returned to Pure Flower's palace to wash up and change into his dragon robes before heading to the throne room. Empress Dowager Zhuang's Phoenix sedan also arrived near the throne room. Eunuch Qin reminded, Empress Dowager, His Majesty has also arrived. Empress Dowager Zhuang rolled her eyes. Empress Dowager Zhuang, who bowed for the 5 candied fruits, had someone get off the sedan and walked out with Eunuch Qin's help. The emperor also came out of the sedan and looked at Empress Dowager Zhuang with a smile in his eyes. He didn't forget to cup his hands in a son's salute. Son pays respects to Imperial Mother. Yesterday he looked like a bag of wilted cabbage, but today he clearly had energy. Empress Dowager Zhuang glanced at him faintly and said, It's getting late. Don't delay and quickly go to court. Doesn't His Majesty always arrive earlier than Ijia? Why are you so late today? The emperor was too embarrassed to say that he overslept in Bishui Alley. Obviously, he couldn't sleep in the magnificent palace, but when he went to Empress Dowager Zhuang's small shabby room, he slept like a log. If he said this, he would despise himself. He would never admit that it was the room that was comfortable to sleep in. It must be that he was too tired after not sleeping for a few days. While the emperor was thinking, he inadvertently saw that Empress Dowager Zhuang was holding an exquisite hand warmer. This was a dual-purpose stove. In the winter, it could be filled with charcoal, and in the summer, it could be filled with ice. Holding it in one's hand, it would be very cool and cool, very good at relieving the heat. The emperor suddenly chuckled and walked over. He raised his hand and knocked down Empress Dowager Zhuang's hand warmer. The hand warmer smashed onto the bluestone floor with a bang. The material was very good, and it was not damaged. Empress Dowager Zhuang's eyes turned cold as she looked at the emperor. Just as she was about to get angry, she saw several court officials walking over from not far away. Eunuch Wei, the Empress Dowager's hand warmer has fallen. Quickly pick it up for the Empress Dowager. Yes. Eunuch Wei picked up the hand warmer on the ground. Since it was dirty on the ground, he naturally couldn't just hand it over to the Empress Dowager. He was just about to wipe it with his sleeve. The emperor took the hand warmer and said, I'll do it. He took out a handkerchief and carefully wiped the hand warmer. After wiping it as if it could shine, he smiled and handed it to Empress Dowager Zhuang. Mother, your hand warmer. The court officials who saw this scene couldn't help but secretly exclaim. The emperor was so filial to the Empress Dowager that he personally wiped her hand warmer. Empress Dowager Zhuang's mouth twitched. She grabbed the hand warmer with a cold face. The emperor slyly reminded her, Smile, mother, smile, we're all watching. I'll smile your ass. Empress Dowager Zhuang faked a smile and said, Ha ha ha. The officials walked away. Empress Dowager Zhuang stopped smiling in a second, and threw the hand warmer that the emperor had taken to Eunuch Qin with disdain. When she walked up the steps of the throne room, Empress Dowager Zhuang lifted her phoenix robe to cover her feet, and stepped on the emperor's instep. The emperor, ow! There were people all around. He closed his mouth tightly and swallowed the cry of despair into his stomach. He was in so much pain that his facial features were twisted into a ball. Empress Dowager Zhuang smiled faintly. What's wrong with the emperor? The emperor stiffened and pinched his thigh. Foot. Move your foot away. Oh, the emperor sprained his foot? Empress Dowager Zhuang raised her eyebrows and stepped on his instep again. The emperor was in so much pain that he rolled his eyes and almost fainted. Empress Dowager Zhuang elegantly reached out and held his arm. She smiled and said, "I'll help you." Then she kept smiling and squeezed a few words from between her teeth. "Everyone is watching, Emperor. Smile." The Emperor's smile was uglier than crying. The officials couldn't help but sigh. The Empress Dowager also loved this son very much. It seemed that after the misunderstanding of the Empress Dowager poisoning the young Duke of Zhaodu was resolved, the relationship between the mother and son really eased a lot. Gu Jiao knew nothing about the things in the palace. After she sent little Jing Kong to the Imperial College, she went to the medical center. She found that the medical center often had more patients in the morning and was a little idle in the afternoon. The little girl from the girls' school came next door to play the guqin from time to time, but now she couldn't hear it. She tried to let little Jiangli learn the guqin, but the girl was only interested in herbs. She was even more stupid when it came to learning the guqin than when she practiced writing. She had to give up the idea of letting little Jiangli play the guqin for her. Gu Jiao looked at the Fushi guqin on the table. Her fingertips tapped on the guqin case a few times. She opened the case and took out the Fushi guqin with the burnt tail. Her slender fingers gently stroked the strings, but she didn't play in the end. She put the Fushi guqin back, closed the case, and got up to leave the medical center. She went to the martial arts center. After several months of challenges, she had become a great martial artist in the martial arts center from the lowest level. She should be a supreme master if she wanted to go further. It was said that there were no more than 5 supreme masters in the capital. They were very rare and hard to come by. Of course, this was the jargon. For the common people, they were a group of martial arts masters. When one reached the level of a supreme master, they rarely appeared in the martial arts world. Taiha Martial Arts Center had a supreme master in charge, but it was only in name. Gu Jiao had been to the martial arts center so many times, but she had never seen a single strand of his hair. The Marquis also came to the martial arts center today. He didn't just come to watch Gu Jiao compete. He also wanted to see if there were any other good seedlings here. If it was before, he could probably find a few, but since Gu Jiao, his eyes became picky. It seemed that it was very difficult to find a young, talented, and person who could control his murderous intent. He was a general on the battlefield. In this life he had killed countless people. How could he not feel the murderous intent of a person? The Marquis didn't know what his sworn brother had experienced to have such a strong murderous intent. It was rare that he could control his murderous intent, and didn't let himself become a murderous devil. This was another reason why the Marquis appreciated Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao came down from the martial arts arena. The Marquis also came out from the second-floor wing. The two met in the main hall. The Marquis smiled at Gu Jiao and said, "Is today's competition over?" Gu Jiao nodded. "You've made great progress recently." It was beyond his expectations. If he hadn't watched his little brother compete, he would have thought that his little brother was originally an expert who had lost his strength for some reason, and was slowly recovering in some way. The Marquis asked again, "That's right, have you been practicing your spear recently?" At the mention of this, Gu Jiao blinked. The Marquis was slightly surprised. "Did you bring your red-tasseled spear?" Gu Jiao shook her head. The Marquis didn't know that she had lost her red-tasseled spear on the night she saved the Emperor. He thought that she had left it at home. He smiled and said, "It's okay. I just happened to bring you a new red-tasseled spear." Gu Jiao followed him to the backyard of the martial arts center. The Marquis carriage stopped outside the back door. He went to the carriage and took a red-tasseled spear wrapped in red cloth. He handed it to Gu Jiao. "Try it." Gu Jiao took it and opened the red cloth to take a look. Wow. It was the big guy she had taken a fancy to in the barracks. This red-tasseled spear was 2 inches longer than the average red-tasseled spear. It was also heavier. The spearhead shone with a cold light. Gu Jiao held it in her hand and tried it out. It was like a flying dragon, extremely domineering. The Marquis's eyes unconsciously revealed a bit of satisfaction. Sure enough, his vision was very unique. This red-tasseled spear of the Yin Kingdom was very suitable for his little brother. "Don't you think it's heavy?" he asked. Gu Jiao shook her head. She liked the weight of the spear. It had the power to destroy everything. It also had the ability to break 1,000 pounds. She tried it out a few more times. The more she tried, the more satisfied she was. She didn't like cold weapons before, but this red tasseled spear suited her very well. The Marquis had been observing her moves. It was the set of spear skills he had taught her. But that set of spear skills was more suitable for the ordinary red tasseled spear. It couldn't display the full power of the red tasseled spear. Little brother Gu, wait a moment. He walked over. Give me the red tasseled spear. Gu Jiao was playing happily. She smacked her lips and gave him the red tasseled spear. The Marquis took it. He didn't do any fancy moves. He only used one move. He bent his legs slightly. His right hand held the base of the red tasseled spear, close to his right waist. His left hand held the middle of the red tasseled spear. He pointed the spearhead forward and fiercely stabbed out. It seemed like a simple move, but at that moment, it was filled with endless killing intent. Even the wind and sand were stirred up and the leaves rustled. Gu Jiao's mask was almost blown off. She blinked, her eyes sparkling. She took out a small notebook and scribbled. What move is this? The Marquis patiently explained. This is called the middle four. It is a middle-level spear skill. It is the master of the 6 harmonies spear. It is the first of the 24 forms of the spear. It seems simple, but in fact it is full of wonderful changes. You don't need to practice anything else. Just practice this move. Come, give it a try. Gu Jiao took the red tasseled spear and tried it out. Naturally, it wasn't very good. The Marquis said, "Don't worry. Take your time." Thinking back, his master had made him practice this move for a full 5 years. He didn't understand his master's deep meaning. Many years later, he finally understood that the essence of the spear skill was in this move. Gu Jiao practiced for a while. She was sweating profusely. The Marquis felt that today's practice was enough. He said to Gu Jiao, "Let's practice another day. It's getting late. Little brother Gu, are you hungry? I'll treat you to donkey meat. There's a donkey barbecue restaurant next door. Little brother Gu should like it." Gu Jiao held the red tasseled spear upright in her arms. She took out a small notebook and wrote, "I have something to do tonight. I'll eat donkey barbecue with you another day." "I see." A trace of disappointment flashed through the Marquis' eyes. Gu Jiao looked at him and wrote, "You seem to have something on your mind?" No. He just wanted to find someone to drink to drown his sorrows. Gu Jiao continued to write, "We're sworn brothers. There's nothing we don't talk about." Little brother Gu was a trustworthy person. In addition, the Marquis had been troubled by something for a long time. He couldn't make up his mind. He hesitated for a while, then cleared his throat and said to Gu Jiao, "Little brother Gu, if you have a friend." Coming. I have a friend." Gu Jiao understood immediately. The Marquis opened his mouth and continued, "If he wants to do something unorthodox, will you support him or not?" Gu Jiao wrote, "That depends on what kind of unorthodox thing it is." The Marquis cleared his throat. "For example, taking someone and running away?" "Ah, the old man is going to elope with someone." Gu Jiao wrote without hesitation, "Yes." The Marquis' face was full of astonishment. "No, you don't even hesitate? So careless?" Gu Jiao wrote down what she had read in her godfather's diary in her previous life. Love is a matter between two people. As long as you like each other, you can find freedom together. In the organization, you can't find freedom, and you can't like anyone. Otherwise, you'll be punished by your godfather. Gu Jiao couldn't understand why there was such a sentence in her godfather's diary. Forget it, she's dead anyway. She won't be able to see her godfather again. Gu Jiao continued to write, "If you're happy, go chase and beg boldly. Don't be afraid of vulgar eyes." The Marquis gasped. "What if I'm rejected?" Gu Jiao wrote, "If she rejects you, it means she doesn't like you. You can just give up." Why does she have the same tone as Gu Yan? Are all the young people nowadays so telepathic? The Marquis' face didn't change. "It's not me." Gu Jiao. When only one person affirms an idea, perhaps his heart isn't firm enough. But when more people affirm it, it can take root and germinate in the bottom of his heart. Not to mention that he just asked 2 random people and got the same answer. It was obvious that he worried too much before. This matter was originally very simple. He wanted to take her away from the palace. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all the novels that you can't find on the internet. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/111433701. HTML Genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 350. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels will be read for free. All the novels that can't be found online will be available here. The old Marquis did as he said and immediately started his plan. Gu Jiao still didn't know that she and Gu Yan had stirred up some trouble. After saying goodbye to the old duke, she went back to the medical center, took off her mask, changed her clothes, and went to the Imperial College to pick up little Jing Kong. Little Jing Kong was in a good mood, because he knew that Gu Jiao would come to pick him up after school. He was even more obedient in class and didn't argue with Teacher Sun for the whole day. Teacher Sun had the most relaxing day of the year. He felt that his middle-aged hair was not as thin as before. "Come to my house to play," Su Kanji, who came out of the classroom, said to little Jing Kong. Little Jing Kong shook his head coldly. "I'm not going today. I want to go home with Jiao Jiao." Su Kanji thought for a while. "Okay then, tomorrow?" Little Jing Kong continued to shake his head. "I'm not going tomorrow either. I want to go home with Jiao Jiao tomorrow too." Jiao Jiao would come to pick him up when his bad brother-in-law was away. He was very happy just thinking about it. Little Jing Kong shook his head and walked away proudly. Su Kanji was left alone in the same place with hidden bitterness. "Brother, I'm really used as a spare tire." Little Jing Kong walked out of the Imperial College. Gu Jiao picked him up and walked back hand in hand. Little Jing Kong tilted his head and said cutely, "Jiao Jiao, I miss you so much. You're even more beautiful today than yesterday." Gu Jiao curved her lips in amusement. "Really?" Little Jing Kong nodded quickly. Yes, yes. Monks don't lie." "So you're still a monk?" Gu Jiao looked at the little buzz cut that someone had grown for the umpteenth time. She thought to herself, nothing will go wrong this time, right? She should be able to grow a head of thick black hair and tie it into a beautiful little bun, right? Little Jing Kong skipped back to Pushui Alley excitedly. Gu Jiao went to fetch water and chop firewood while little Jing Kong went back to his room to do his homework. Since Xiao Lulang wasn't around, his homework was checked by the old chancellor. The old chancellor hadn't finished his duty yet. Little Jing Kong finished his homework very quickly. He came out of the house and walked to Gu Jiao, who was chopping firewood. With his hands behind his back, he rolled his eyes and said, "Jiao Jiao, I'm going next door to play with Xiaobao." Xiaobao was Master Zhao's biological grandson. He was 1 year younger than little Jing Kong, and was the closest playmate to little Jing Kong. Gu Jiao didn't refuse. "Okay, I'll call you when dinner is ready." The little guy rolled his eyes again. "Then can I bring something over?" "Sure." Gu Jiao didn't have any objection. She was chopping firewood and didn't see his sneaky expression. Little Jing Kong went back to his room, the East Room. That's right. Although his brother-in-law also lived in the East Room, little Jing Kong firmly believed that he was the master of the East Room. He had been taking in his bad brother-in-law who might be laid off at any time. What kind of little cutie was he? Little Jing Kong's junk half stayed at home, and the other half moved to the small courtyard of the medical center. He opened the wardrobe, pulled out his small box, and poured out the books in the bag. Then he picked up some interesting things from the small box and put them in. "Jiao Jiao, I'm leaving." He carried the bag on his back and ran out of the courtyard. When Gu Jiao turned to look at him, the little guy had already run away. She couldn't help laughing. Naughty. Little Jing Kong was a child with great self-control. He didn't run around, so Gu Jiao didn't expect that the little guy didn't go next door. Instead, he carried his junk to a pawn shop on Xuanwu Street. When the boss of the pawn shop saw that it was a child, he thought that he was here to play. He hurriedly waved his hand and asked him to leave. Go play somewhere else. Little Jing Kong said. I'm not here to play. I'm here to pawn. It wasn't his first time here. He had done some research with Su Tangtang and Brother Chuyu before, so he knew that there was a pawn shop here. The boss was amused when he heard that. It was always funny when a child talked like an adult. The boss wasn't in a hurry to ask him to leave. He smiled and asked him, What do you want to pawn? Well, these. See if there's anything you like. I'll pawn whatever you like. Little Jing Kong stood on his tiptoes but still couldn't reach the counter. He was anxious. Hey, you come out and see for yourself. The boss was amused by Little Jing Kong. He opened the door at the side and walked out. Okay, let me see what you have. He didn't think that this child was really here to pawn. He was most likely here to play. Little Jing Kong handed the bag to him. The boss took out the things inside and placed them on the counter. He was the first one to laugh out loud. In their line of work, they had to be knowledgeable. From the antiques of the previous dynasty, to the calligraphy of the great scholars, and even the rare items of the Six Nations, they had more or less dabbled in them. Look at what this child had in his bag. The house deed of the Liang nation, the tiger talisman of the Zhao nation, the luminous cup of the Chun nation. The next item was even more impressive. He even had the imperial jade seal of the Jin nation. The boss laughed until his stomach hurt. Were there so many different kinds of toys for children these days? Not to mention, the impersonation was quite realistic. The boss didn't think that these things were real at all. The boss put the things back and handed him a piece of malt candy with a smile. He only gave it to him because he was cute. So many good things. You're amazing. Okay, go back. Little Jing Kong held back his saliva. I don't want candy. I want to pawn it. The boss said, You can't pawn it. Little Jing Kong widened his eyes and said, Why? Is there nothing here that catches your eye? You haven't finished looking at it. There's more inside. If you like it, I can pawn it for you at a cheaper price. Little Jing Kong was in urgent need of money. Although he was a small landlord and received 2 payments of rent every month, his money had been handed over to the Jiao for safekeeping. If he needed it, he had to get it from the Jiao. But he didn't want the Jiao to know. That was why he thought of pawning it. Looking at his cute little face, the boss couldn't bear to tell him that his things were fake and that he couldn't pawn it. He only said to him, You can't pawn it. Don't run around, kid. Go back quickly. Little Jing Kong was rejected and let out a long sigh. He lowered his head and walked out of the pawn shop slowly with a bag of books on his back. There were a total of 3 pawn shops on Xuanwu Street. He went to the other 2 pawn shops, but he was chased out before he could even enter. The little guy who was rejected again and again was traumatized. He pursed his lips and felt wronged. He walked back dejectedly. Suddenly, a man wearing a crescent white long-sleeved robe, an ink blue gauze robe, and a jade belt around his waist blocked Little Clear Sky's path. The man had a gentle expression and held a folding fan in his hand. He smiled and looked at Little Jing Kong. Little brother, do you want to pawn something? How did you know? Little Jing Kong looked at him warily. The man patted his palm with the folding fan and smiled. I was looking for something in that pawn shop just now. I saw you being chased out by them. Oh. Little Jing Kong was relieved. So you saw it. The man smiled. What a coincidence. I didn't see any suitable antiques in the pawn shop. Little brother, do you have anything I like? Little Jing Kong thought for a while. I can show you. The man squatted down and put his hand into Little Jing Kong's bag of books. He looked surprised as he looked. Little brother, you have a lot of things. Little Jing Kong stuck out his chest. I knew it. I have a lot of good things. You know what's good for you. What do you want? I'll give it to you at a cheap price. No, I don't know you. I can't redeem it in the future. I'll sell it to you at a cheap price. He had asked the young master what pawning meant and knew that it was different from selling. The man looked down and smiled. He took out a golden abacus from little Jing Kong's bag of books. The owner of the first pawn shop didn't see the golden abacus. Otherwise he would know that it was not fake. Among all the things, little Jing Kong liked the golden abacus the most. He felt his heart ache when he saw that the man picked it. The man smiled. "Sell this to me, how about it?" Little Jing Kong bit his lip and nodded. This is very expensive." "How much is it?" the man asked. Little Jing Kong said painfully, 500 taels. This was the amount he needed. He wouldn't sell it if it was less than this price. "Okay." The man took out 5 100 taels banknotes and gave them to him. Little Jing Kong took the banknotes and looked at his beloved golden abacus reluctantly. "Little Jean, goodbye forever. I'm sorry. I don't want to sell you." But he had no choice. Little Jing Kong knew real banknotes. After all, he collected rent every month. He put away the banknotes, carried the bag of books, and left with tears in his eyes. The man looked at little Jing Kong's sad back and couldn't help laughing. "Little brother, my name is Mingyu. You can call me young Master Mingyu. We'll meet again someday." Little Jing Kong wiped his tears with his hand. Sop. Little Jean was gone. So sad. "Young master." A young guard in gray walked over from the alley. He looked at the golden abacus in the man's hand and said, "He has so many good things. Why did you choose the most worthless one?" "That's right. Any one of the items in little Jing Kong's bag of books was more valuable than the golden abacus." The man glared at him. "You want to take advantage of a child?" The young guard curled his lips. "You said it as if you didn't take advantage of him. 500 taels of banknotes for a golden abacus. You're losing money." But the young guard went back to the topic. "Is this child really related to that person?" The man snorted. "Who else can get so many treasures except for that person?" The young guard paused. "Then will that person appear?" The man looked at the small figure disappearing at the end of the street and said, "Keep an eye on this little monk. That person will appear one day." The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. All the novels that you can't find on the internet are available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896/111431783. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bkuj mobile reading website, zhhbqg.com. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.